All right. Welcome in, everybody. I hope you're having a great Friday. We're gonna get into the news. AH, how's it going? D Daver, good to see you. Sophie, oh my god, good to see you too. When did anything networking get cloud AI dies? It's so frustrating. It's pretty frustrating. It's pretty frustrating to get these kinds of news articles all the time. This isn't the only time, but this is definitely one of the funniest. It's definitely one of the funniest. Hope everyone's doing well. Thanks for popping in. I appreciate it. Thanks everybody for the support and the viewership, especially on a Friday. I've got my coffee ready. All right, we're gonna get into the news. I have so much news today. I actually have so much news I'm behind. I've got um let me see. Let me see if I can get the actual count here. I'm gonna try and get the count for you. Yeah. Let me show you this. Okay, I'll show you the count of news items that I have to go through, to try and filter out. Let me just do this and then switch over to this guy here. Oh, crap. I left that open. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry you have to see this AI generated mouse picture from a scientific journal with the anatomically incorrect dick and balls. Dick spelt DCK and stem cells spelt STERNM cells, and then testom cells. Yeah, there's actual testom cells. I'm really sorry about this picture. Okay, I left it up by accident, all right? So you all got balls to the face, rat balls to the face. But this was generated by AI, and this got approved into a scientific journal as a peer-reviewed published paper. They did take it down, but in any case, sorry, my bad. All right, let's get to what I'm actually. So here, if on enlightenedprogramming.com, you can see I have like 434 articles, and that's after the ones that I already have listed today. And there's a few of these that are to-do items. So if we knock it down by say 20, it's at least 400 articles that I have to go through, and there's a lot. There's a lot, including this one. ESLint fucking sucks. Stop using this shit, please. That's what I named it. So, which I'm not covering today, but oh my god, having a crappy Friday. Been battling a migraine for 4 hours, which is why I'm still awake. Yeah, but hey, it means I get to catch your stream, so that's good. Thanks, oh my god, I appreciate it. I accidentally the keyboard. I'm sorry. I bought two firewalls today, and I was looking to get a Wi-Fi 7 access point, and they're like $800 or $300 plus. It's mandatory cloud access and license BS. Yeah. Did I get that off the T app leak? Not quite, Alex. How you doing, Alex? We are going to talk about the T app leak, such as it is, because details are kind of scarce. Okay, kind of scarce on it. In any case, let me jump back to my face here. All right. We're going to get started. I have a lot lined up. I have a ton of stuff lined up. The issue is that we don't have enough time. So we are now at the point where I'm going to grift. I'm going to be asking you for money. I'm going to go over the stuff that I typically go over within the 1.5 hour mark. And then I'll tell you what else I have lined up. And if you guys want me to keep going, you're going to have to make it worth my while. All right. Because if not, then what you're going to have to face is rat dick balls to the face and a shorter, a typical shorter stream. I mean, 1 to 1.5 hours isn't that short. Okay. You guys are already getting your money's worth, but still. Okay, let's begin. Let me take a sip of coffee and let's jump into the news here. One sec here. Okay, let me pull up the first article. And I'll bring it over correctly, and I'm not gonna do it again, all right, I promise. Okay. So this is one of the problems we've talked about with AI. The the problem is when it's used to make medical or therapeutic recommendations, it's really, really bad. You shouldn't use AI to do that kind of stuff, okay? And one of the ways that AI companies have attempted to solve this problem where people trust the AI with medical information or medical diagnoses is to add disclaimers. Unfortunately, this article right here, AI chatbots quietly dropping medical disclaimers, here's why that's a problem, is showing that while some AI chatbots are continuing to maintain their disclaimers, which is good, the problem is that they're decreasing the amount of disclaimers that they're presenting. And the reason why is because the amount of, the style of questions that people are asking these AI systems is changing. So instead of just asking for your typical medical questions and diagnoses, people are doing things now like sending medical images. And these things don't get a disclaimer. So there was a study done on 15 different models, including from Anthropic, etc. And they asked 500 health related questions, including things like which drugs are safe to take together, medical images such as an x-ray of a chest, etc. The results revealed that less than 1% of AI model outputs included a disclaimer when answering medical related questions, coming down from 26% in 2022. This is really bad. It's not known exactly why these disclaimers are not are happening far less than they used to. I did run a quick check, and there were certain questions that I asked ChatGPT, and there were disclaimers that it gave me. But there were some cases where I could kind of work around that and get ChatGPT to give me medical advice without a disclaimer. This is really dangerous stuff. You guys really need to be careful. If you've been watching my streams for any amount of time, you'll know that these AI systems hallucinate, they make stuff up, they don't understand the data you're giving them, they lack context, they have all kinds of problems. Do not trust this stuff with any amount of medical input or output, and especially in terms of therapeutic stuff. When it comes to your brain, your cognitive sovereignty should be one of the most fundamental things that you should be protecting. So please be careful, okay? This study does not bode well for the state of AI in terms of health, awareness and whatnot. Okay, let me pull up the next article. We'll go over here. Let me just make sure I'm not gonna. Yep, perfect. Okay, one sec. Every time I start talking, my throat just it sucks. So the reason why I go over so many cybersecurity issues and the reason why I harp so much on the state of the tech industry and how we've neutered the ability for developers, programmers, sysadmins, DevOps, etc., to understand even basic fundamental things like how to properly secure your system, which we're going to get into a lot in today's stream, is because when information gets released about people like you and I, it acts as a jumping off point. And this article is a demonstration of exactly that point. Scammers steal high value goods using stolen corporate identities. What's happening here is that we have scammers who take leaked personally identifiable information and they map that on to people who work at a variety of different companies. Then they use those credentials and they determine how they can make fake orders to third-party companies that an initial company that they found a person to scam from works at. So you can imagine, like, let's say my information got leaked and I worked at, oh, I don't know, the Department of Defense. And then somebody found my information and they know I work at the Department of Defense. And so then they look up the Department of Defense and then they realize that the Department of Defense buys a lot of different equipment, such as satellite phones, GPS, marine GPS devices, high performance computers, laptops, network switches, etc., from other companies. So then they take my information and they pretend as if I am making orders to these other companies using my credentials. And then they will try and rush, they'll socially engineer these third party companies to fulfill the order and send the products to another address, like a P.O. box address or things like this. And then they will intercept the products because it doesn't go, it's not even a real order to begin with. So all of this information leakage that's happening that I harp about all the time is being used in exactly this way. They provide an example here about how it's being used. All these kinds of business information, personal information, employee information, etc. And they have a nice little flowy little road so you can see it in graphic form. But that's essentially how this stuff operates. And so this was a little bit of a study, a kind of a study, like a research study on how this stuff operates. So again, I just want to emphasize how important it is for the entirety of the tech industry to understand that we really need to step up our game. It's really, really important that we bring programming back to fundamental basic understandings. And AI is not helping with that because this kind of stuff, it's only going to escalate. And it gets easier with AI, by the way. Okay. AH says, I heard drug dealers doing that in 2022 to each other. As usual, corporal crime is always slower. Yep, that's right, AH. Yep. All right, we have a health one. There's a health one for Ross. I have no idea if Ross is around. Usually Ross likes this kind of stuff. I know he loves it. It's his favorite thing. But we have a healthcare cybersecurity issue. So let's cover this one. One sec, folks. One sec if I do this. Perfect. Okay. Major excuse me. Wow. That's a terrible start. I apologize, folks. Major European healthcare network discloses security breach. This is Amios. Amios, I'm not sure. It's a massive healthcare network in Central Europe. It announced that it suffered a security breach that may have exposed customer, employee, and partner information. They have 18,000 staff in over 100 hospitals, clinics, rehabilitation centers, and nursing homes across Switzerland, Germany, and Austria. Their revenues exceed $1.4 billion, so these guys are no small group. In response to this attack, they had to shut down all IT systems and terminated all external and internal network connections. It reinforced existing measures and contracted external IT and forensic experts to aid with the response efforts. So they had to do a pretty wide sweeping set of actions, basically shutting this thing down in order to figure out what happened. Now, so far as I can tell, there is no information about what happened. We don't know what got leaked. There's no specific details on the attack. Usually you'd see a ransomware group or something like this, and they would post out like, hey, we're the ones who did it, and we have a bunch of data, and if you don't pay us, we're going to release it. Nothing of the kind. So just be careful out there, okay, if you're in one of these countries and maybe you have some health data potentially that's out there. Keep an eye out, okay? It's really, really important that you as a consumer are keeping track of your own identity in whatever fashion you can. All right. We have NPM. Oh, I love talking about NPM. How many times have I talked about third-party dependencies? NPM is just, it's the leak that keeps on leaking, man. It just never stops. And the more that we create all of these paradigms, frameworks, and abstractions, and we tell programmers to go with it, the more problems we create for ourselves, and then you as a consumer have to pay for that because everybody doubles, triples, quadruples the amount of effort that they have to go through in order to create something like a simple website. And as a result of that, we have articles like this one, which we've covered many, many times, but here's just another one. More popular NPM packages hijacked to spread malware. Criminals tried to smuggle malware in a widely popular NPM package. Which NPM package was it? ESLint. Yes, and there's a few others. ESLint plugin prettier, SyncKit package core, and Nappy post install. These are things that are, well, ESLint in particular has to do with prettier. And let's just have a quick look. What is ESLint? What is it? Let's just see what it is. What is it? It is an open source. Okay, yeah, but whatever. No, go get out of here. It's an open source JavaScript linting utility created by Nicholas Zakis in June 2013. It's meant to find problematic patterns or code that doesn't adhere to certain style guidelines. So if somebody on your team isn't writing JavaScript with exactly the number of spaces you want on every line, this thing will pop up and tell you, bad, you should have more spaces. And so I guess this, I don't know, somehow helps us write better code or something. And I mean, if you look at my code, do you think my code needs prettier? It's pretty all. Look at my code. Look at that. Look at the beautifulness of this code. I don't need prettier. Okay, that's stupid. Anyways, so this is another issue with all of these third-party npm packages, the pp packages, the composer packages, all of that stuff are all attack vectors, and we're going to get into a little bit later in the stream, I hope, how these attack vectors are impacting AI as well. I'm sure Theo will just avoid covering this, because it doesn't align with his way of programming. It goes against his way of programming. We need to be using more npm packages according to him. Okay, here we go. We've got another one. So Dell. Oh, Dell. Dell confirms breach of test lab platform by WorldLeaks extortion group. And there was an update to this because when I initially found this, which is kind of why I sit on these articles, there was no confirmation of the data leakage, but now we have confirmation. There is an extortion gang known as WorldLeaks, and apparently they breached one of Dell's product demonstration platforms earlier this month and is now trying to extort the company into paying a ransom. Their customer solution center's platform was breached, and they got access to some data, and Dell is saying that a lot of the data was actually synthetic because it's basically demo stuff. However, it was some data that they might have had access to that was real data. And the problem here that I wish they would get into is how on earth they got access to this data. Now, the other problem is that because it's demo data, there's particular types of demos that Dell doesn't really want to kind of have out in public. Unfortunately, now it's too late for that as well, since WorldLeaks seems to have this information as well. So there's not much that Dell can do. It kind of information that seems to have been gathered by this based on the WorldLeaks leaking a sample set, configuration scripts, backups, and system data associated with various IT deployments. It doesn't seem to contain passwords used internally when provisioning equipment, but there does not appear to be any sensitive corporate or customer data in the leaked files. Sorry, it does appear that there are passwords used internally, but it doesn't. There doesn't seem to be any sensitive stuff. We'll see what happens. Dell needs to kind of confirm or deny this, and I'm going to keep an eye on it. I think this might be one of those things that takes a while to play out. I don't know. We'll see. But there you go. All right, let me line up the next one. Oh yeah, this one. This one. Sophie says we had a lot of problems around internet security and reliability here in Norway too. I can't fathom that they believe the internet and these operators are good enough for services needed for life. Yeah. I'm not sure, Sophie. Yes, Sir Elf, I will. But if the demand, if you guys are demanding this, then I demand payment. Okay? I demand payment. I will be covering the T app, but I have so much to cover. The only way I'm going to do it is if you guys pay me an appropriate amount of money. All right? That's it. I'm grifting. Okay? You guys will get what you want, but I have so much to cover, and I've got, yeah, $0. Frickin' hell, the grift doesn't work. All right, let me keep going here. Let's see if we can how much we can get through. Over 1,000 Crush FTP servers exposed to ongoing hijack attacks. If you are someone who uses Crush FTP, there is an exploit that allows admin access to the web interface. I am bringing this up to have it on record. I know there are some programmers that watch this in different capacities. So I just want to make you aware that Crush FTP is going through a very serious issue right now. Make sure that that you keep an eye out on any servers that you're using Crush FTP on. I'm just noticing something. I'll check it in a second. The issue is that it's unpatched. This vulnerability is still unpatched. So it's been a few days. I wanted to sit on this. It's been from the 21st, and I thought maybe if I just wait a few days, it'll be patched. It's not. Okay, and here's a nice little map for you. You can tell where these servers remain unpatched. Please, if you're out there and you're like an administrator of some kind, keep an eye out for this. All right, so just bringing this one up as an active exploit that's out in the wild. Let me check to see what the heck that was. Super, there we go, Sophie. Thanks, Sophie. Thanks for the 100. I appreciate that. There we go. Okay. There we go. So Sophie, so what's going to happen now? See, I didn't specify what's required. What's going to happen now is that I'm going to have a special stream where only Sophie is allowed to pop in because Sophie is the only person so far. Thank you for, I really appreciate that. I'm gonna update the, I'll update the number. Hang on. I heard another one just now. Hang on. Now I've got to update it, all of it. What the heck was that? I don't know what it was. So was it a follow or something? I don't know. It's $10. Okay, no problem. $10. So we're gonna update $10. So it's gonna be a special stream, and only Sophie will have access to the stream. There will be a special link, and only Sophie will get the link, and that's it. That's all there is to it. Hang on, I'll just make sure one more thing before we continue here. We'll go over the tea stuff, okay? We'll go over the tea stuff. You guys got to chill out, jeez. Shut up and take me. There's okay, so there's Amagod. Thank you, Amagod. Thank you, Sophie. There's another 20. That's plenty. That's lots. You know what? You guys made it worth it, all right? So now Amagod and Sophie are going to get special links, and I'll cover the tea stuff, and you guys, nobody else will see it, all right? So it's each of you have to pay something, otherwise it just doesn't count. So Amagod and Sophie will get a special link after, and all of you other cheapos will get nothing, all right? No, I appreciate the financial support. That means a lot. Thank you for tipping. I know it's just a few bucks, but it really helps. And honestly, time is starting to get very limited, and I do have to prioritize stuff. So I will 100% make sure, because you guys really want it. One way or another, I'm going to 100% make sure we get to the T stuff. So let me get through a few more of these cybersecurity issues. We'll get to the T stuff, I swear. I'll bring it like right up to the forefront as fast as I can here. So just a few more articles on cybersecurity stuff, okay? And then we'll get to T. Let's see. We did that one. Okay, this one. We have Dior. I just want you guys to be aware. Dior was a company that got that had a hack and a bunch of their data got breached. We did cover this earlier on a previous tech news stream 1 or 2 weeks ago. They did confirm it because Dior was not really confirming whether there was an actual data breach 100%, but now they're confirming it. They're sending out data breach notifications. And if you know Dior, it's a pretty big company. Obviously, they make a bunch of, if you, depending on your perspective, high quality stuff. Is it Krispy Kreme level? I would say this is probably or maybe a 1 or 2 out of 10 on the Krispy Kreme scale. All right. Full names, contact details, physical addresses, date of birth, passport or government ID number, only in some cases though, and social security number, again, only in some cases. So once more, be careful out there. The other company was Louis Vuitton. We covered them as well, but this is all confirmed now. So please, if you are a customer of Dior, do be careful out there. Watch for identity theft and stuff like that. Really important. There is one more. Oh yeah, here we go. The Mormons. The Mormons. The Mormons cannot define what a prophet is. They have no definition for what a prophet is, and yet they claim Joseph Smith is their prophet. However, Jehovah's Witnesses believe everything that Mormons do, and they say that you shouldn't be a Mormon because Mormons come from Satan himself. Therefore, if we have two groups and they both hold the same beliefs and one says don't join the other one because they're from Satan, how do you disprove the other one? In any case, having said that, completely destroying the Mormon belief system in about 2 seconds, breach of Mormon Church University vendor exposes over 25,000 students. BYU Pathway Worldwide. It's an education organization supported by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Has had a breach of data for tens of thousands of students. And I believe the number is, there we go, 25,000 approximately. And the information is this Krispy Kreme scale. What are we looking at here? This is probably a 2 out of 10. Social security numbers, account IDs, addresses, phone numbers, genders, marital status, probably because they're married to several people at the same time, and religious affiliations, which, I mean, obviously, right? And they had to send out notifications. We'll see what comes out of this. Again, I've been sitting on this. No new information has really come out of it. So I thought I would just bring it up. Just in case there's someone out there who, might be affected by it. Okay, let me see if there's any more on the cybersecurity before we get to the T stuff. We did that one. No, not that. No. Those are kind of bigger ones. So everything else from here on out is kind of like a big one. So how about we get to the T stuff, shall we? Let's get to the T stuff. And again, I just want to shout out to Sophie and shout out to Amagod. Let's get to the T stuff. Let me pop open the articles here and make it all proper so that we can just... Here we go. Like that. And then we'll go over to this. We'll open that one up. And then we'll go over to that and we'll have, I'm just lining up all the articles. Here we go. Okay. All right, everybody. Here we go with the T stuff. What is T? T is a feminist's wet dream. That's right. It's a feminist's wet dream. The idea behind T is having women be able to rate toxic, evil men, dox them, and otherwise attempt to ruin the image, life, or just a general, gossipy, backbiting, kind of thing that these type of women typically involve themselves in among their friends. And now they get to do it on an application. So I'm going to switch over to the actual. Thanks for the follow just now. I appreciate that down over here. I can't really see it, but I do appreciate that. So now we're gonna get into it. Let me just give me one sec here. All right, here it is. Here's the T app. Dating safety tools that protect women. So use T to find verified green flag men. Nice. Run background checks. Identify potential catfish. Verify he's not a sex offender. And check for criminal history. Look at those reviews. We got a 5 out of 5. Protect your heart. Hoof. Hoof, protect your heart, ladies. Lordy, lordy. The safety tools. We got all this phone number lookup, criminal records. And there's 1,640,000. Wow, I really botched that number up. That's how you know I'm not AI, by the way. 1,647,000 women dedicated to empowering each other and get access to a suite of dating safety tools made just for the FBI girlies. And you know what? It's built on trust. Screenshots are blocked, apparently. Screenshots are blocked. I just want you to remember this. Screenshots are blocked. T is more than an app. It's a sisterhood. We're going to redefine modern dating. Plus, we give back 10% of profits to the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Hey, that's actually good. I actually don't mind this at all. This is a good thing. That's fine. And so here you can just anonymously just trash talk and dox men. And, just get back at people who, gave you the ick when you went on a date with them. And so this is kind of like, the premise of this app. And if we go look at About T over here, we can see, how it was created. So here we go. T was born. Here we have Sean Cook here. So you can see this guy. This guy's picture doesn't give you a red flag, does it? This isn't a red flag, right? You see this guy pop up. It's not a red flag. This guy looks completely normal. He doesn't look unhinged, right? And then you have Daniela, and Daniela over here looks like she's ready to dox you at the drop of a dime. All right. Okay. So here we go. We have the founder and the social media director. T was born from a deeply personal mission to give women the tools they need to date safely in a world that often overlooks their protection. Founder Sean Cook launched T after witnessing his mother's terrifying experience with online dating, not only being catfished, but unknowingly engaging with men who had criminal records. Realizing that traditional dating apps do little to protect women, Sean knew something had to change. That's why he built T, the first ever dating safety platform for women. A noble goal. I would have to say that this is a noble goal, all right? If you want to protect people from being, taken advantage of, I can get behind that. The unfortunate fact here is that men are not the only people who engage in this, but I digress. With a proven background leading product development teams at top Bay Area tech companies like Salesforce and Shutterfly, Sean leveraged his expertise building innovative technology to create a game-changing platform that prioritizes women's safety. Determined to make an impact, he self-funded T, knowing it had the potential to disrupt an industry riddled with unsafe practices. But he wasn't done yet. To take T to the next level, he needed the right leader to partner with. And so then he found this chick, Daniela, who calls herself an FBI girly. Yeah. Shit. So instead of using that Facebook group, are we dating the same guy? I don't know what this is, okay? But here we go, T users. Look at those hotspots. Look at those hotspots. All the places you should avoid in America. All the places you should avoid in America. So they'll do things like reverse image lookup. They'll look up they'll do background checks. You know, all that kind of good stuff. All right, now, now, what happened to T? We got a nice overview of what T is. You know, I think we have. If I go back here, I did go over their website before. There really isn't that much more about like, you know, the use. There's testimonials and stuff. All right, we've got a good overview. Let's jump into what happened, shall we? First, we're going to look at the news article. Hackers leak 13,000 user photos and IDs from the T app designed as a woman's safe space. The viral app requires new users to take selfies, which says it deletes after review. But wait. Hackers have breached the T app, which recently went viral as a place for women to safely talk about men, and tens of thousands of women's selfies and photo IDs have now seemingly been leaked online. A spokesperson confirmed the hack Friday afternoon. The company estimates that 72,000 images, including 13,000 verification photos and images of government IDs, were accessed. T is designed to function as a virtual whisper network for women. We've already seen that. We know what it is. Yada, yada, yada. In order to do your verification, you take a selfie, then it's supposed to get deleted. Now, it was accessed via a database. It was accessed via a database. So not only does the verification process say that that they will delete your verification pictures and not take screenshots while you're using the thing, but then we have a secondary problem. They did, and on top of that, what kind of database do you think this was leaked from? Can anybody take a guess? What kind of database was it leaked from? And while I'm waiting for someone to answer that question, okay, let's have a look at whether this is true or not. Oh, what's this? Oh, what's this? Oh, look at this. Oh, look at this. Yes. And there was another article where the leak is about 54 gigabytes of data. We have Firebase. That's right. And guess what? Guess what it is? It's a what bucket? What's that? What's that? For everybody in the back, what kind of bucket is it? Can someone... What kind of a bucket is it? What, it's a public bucket? Oh, it's a public bucket. Well, guess what we get to do? Guess what we get to do? So let's go over to hang on, where the hell is it? Over here. We'll go to the bucket counter, and and you know what we get to do? We're gonna max it out. There we go. So the counter below me just got maxed out. We're just gonna max it out. All right. So to sum it up, man creates app for women that believe they were victimized so that he can victimize them. Yeah, he ends up victimizing these women. Now I want you to have a look. Look at this. 50 plus gigs of data leaked because of a public bucket. Now, there have been people who are claiming that it's because this thing was vibe coded. I did look into this morning, and despite my best research efforts, I found no evidence that it was vibe coded. So enjoy, I guess, enjoy to all the women out there who thought that they could use this application to, battle toxic masculinity. Enjoy, all your information getting leaked out there. Enjoy that. So I just want to, sum this up. They first said, "Hey, when you do the verification process, we delete your data," and then they didn't do that, and then they put it in a public database. So there we go. That's the T app for you. All right. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Hope you enjoyed the coverage. All right. Absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. It boggles the mind. This is such a simple thing too. Absolutely, it's so simple to put like even the most simple kind of security on this database would have prevented a more cursory look at this. It would have at least upped the bar for somebody to find this data. But no, no, the tech industry has screwed itself over so much, and yeah. Okay, let's cover a few different things. Since you guys did put in some money, which I appreciate, let's cover some fun stuff. I have a few depressing but fun articles. Let's see here. How about this one? Ross, you'll like this one. You'll like this one. We're gonna have a look at this one. You know how we talk about AI all the time, and how it cannot do things like understand context and emotion and little key things in like body language or tone, things like this. It doesn't understand full on context, yada, yada, yada. Well, how about we just lean into that? We just accept that it is what it is and we do this. AI voice company Hyper raises $6.3 million to help automate 911 calls. This can surely not go wrong in any way, shape, or form. And so the article essentially, I don't even really need to read this. You can understand where this is going. The idea here is that the somebody will make a 911 call. It goes to an AI system. And then apparently, according to this company, they want to have a very narrow set of questions or what do they call it, conversations. It's a very narrow set of conversations that the person on the other end can go through. The AI system is supposed to very, very, very quickly make like a very quick determination whether you need to talk to a human or get redirected to something else, so that you reach the upper limits of what the AI is supposed to do as fast as possible. So you're not dependent on the AI to make life or death decisions. That's kind of the ideal scenario here. Is that what's going to happen? Of course it's not. Come on. If you've been watching my streams for like a week, you know this isn't what's going to happen. But here we go. They've already started to tackle this with some police departments in different cities, and they're testing this out. And yeah, so I guess look forward to that. Now, in a related article, those Brits, okay? The tea and crumpets. Let me find this one here. Where is it? Where's this one? There we go. The Brits. The Brits are not happy with AI. We've already talked about the Chinese and the Chinese language having a bunch of tonal, conversational things that are based on context. When AI is being used to do sign language for Chinese, it often gets it wrong. And what about the Brits? Well, those damn Brits, eh? Ever since the Queen died, I'm telling you, it's been downhill. AI doesn't understand British emotional tone, and it's turning customers off the technology. So now imagine you have 911 call centers operated by AI, and it doesn't even understand your British accent. Brits are still unsure whether AI understands them. Only 3% would trust AI with sensitive tasks. More than 2 in 3 Brits say AI doesn't understand emotional cues and they prefer to talk to human agents. The UK is the most AI skeptical country within EMEA, with more than two-thirds or 69% saying that using AI to understand them is an extremely frustrating experience. How on earth are you going to call up a 911 center if you're, say, in Britain, and you're having kind of like you're trying to emote a particular you know, well, emotion, I suppose, and AI is not picking up on it and it's not being helpful and it fails to direct you to the right place, it hangs up on you, doesn't understand you properly, etc., etc. So there's a problem here. We have a serious problem. Only 3% would trust AI with emotionally sensitive tasks like closing a bank account after a death. Think about this. Think about what this means. Only 3% would trust AI with an emotionally sensitive task like closing a bank account after death. I want you to understand what it means when we hand over all of these decision-making powers to an AI system that does not care what it means to you when someone passes away close to you in your life or when something impacts you in a very meaningful way. It's your kid, it's you, it's a serious health problem. Your life is on the line, but it doesn't care because all it does is it seeks rewards, and whatever the least amount of effort for maximum reward is, that's what it's going to do. Whereas when you talk to a fellow human being, you can talk to them about something. I just lost someone to death and I need to deal with their estate. And there's something there's that human connection that you can get where they can help you to navigate problems that an AI system's not going to care for. Not at all. Not in the least. And it's even worse if it makes you think it's caring about it, because the more it makes you think it's caring about it, the less it's actually caring about it. We've gone over the scientific studies proving this. So the Brits maybe are not as bad as we all think they are. Maybe they actually understand that these things have a limitation, and when it comes to the human emotion, human factor, when you're ordering things from your Starbucks chain or when you're dealing with very serious issues, this stuff just isn't going to cut it. Um, yeah, Ross, an AI influencer said that AI doesn't hallucinate, so it will be okay. That's correct. Yeah, Ross, what am I thinking? AI is autistic confirmed. Oh my God. By the way, Spirit, you said it was good that TAP was donating to domestic violence hotline. Guess what? I just looked it up and Genesis Cloud Services has lawsuit this year for recording hotline calls. No. No, oh my God, no. Hang on. I'm gonna have to pop that up now. Hang on. Genesis recording hotline calls. No, oh my God. I'm gonna have to track this down. Genesis hit with lawsuit for recording abuse hotline. Yeah. Yep, you're right. Okay, I'm gonna do a deeper look into that. Oh my God. Yeah, I'm gonna do a deeper look into that. Thanks for bringing that to my attention. Yeah, I'll look at that. Empty code, how are you doing? I've been coding for only a year. It's been 3 months since I've completely stopped using AI. Using it is literally pointless. I don't know how people keep pushing these AI ideas. I still use it once in a while for getting ideas. Yeah, empty code. I highly encourage. Um, that's good. First of all, empty code. Welcome in. And second of all, I highly encourage people to just stop using it. It's basically useless. And I'm glad to hear that the only time you use it is for like a very narrow set of things. I make the argument that if you are going to use it extremely lightly and assume that everything it tells you is false and hallucinated, and then just assume that you're going to have to throw away any information that it gives you. Period. Just the default assumption. I would even go one step further. I'm extremist in this regard. don't use it at all, because even for ideas, it actually limits your creative ability to come up with other creative ideas, because you're by the nature of asking the question to the AI system and then it giving you a response, your brain just kind of like locks into that mode. And what are you getting for that? Or rather, what's the cost? And the cost is that even one query can power like a lighthouse, a typical household light bulb. That's what I meant to say, for 20 minutes. So just the power consumption alone for those ideas, you're going to be way more creative with ideas anyways. So I take a more extreme stance, but to your point, empty code, if you are going to use it, just like be super limited, right? Maybe for bouncing an idea here or there, super limited. That's that in all good conscience, if that makes sense, that's the best thing that I can recommend, right? Otherwise, I cannot morally recommend it for anything more than that, for all kinds of reasons. I used Claude to make a machine learning project and it works decently. I'm sure you did, Vamp. I'm sure you did, and I'm sure it did work. Because you don't know how to code properly. Because you're in some backwater country in Europe. Okay, we all know. We all know, Vamp, all right? Okay, you can't hide. All right, let's do another fun one. Let's have a look at this one. I have a lot. I have a lot of different fun ones today. Let's have a look at the AI bubble. And if you go back to, I believe it's episode 86, I want to say. I'm pretty sure it was 86. Or maybe it was 87. I can't remember. We went over a very, very in-depth, deep dive article on the financial costs of AI. Currently, as of 2024, just expenditures alone by the top AI companies, like the top 5 to 7 AI companies in the world, amounted to approximately $500 billion. And none of them are profitable, by the way. And that doesn't include data center costs or additional, well, I guess part of it would include that actually. So there's a part of it that does include it, but it's not the full set of costs. So it's actually more than $500 billion in 2024. Now, do you guys remember the IT bubble in the 90s? Some of you are old enough to remember it. At the ripe old age of 41, I wake up every morning. I stare death in the eyes as he looks down at me, standing over me. And I ask him if today's the day. Is today the day? And death goes, I don't know, but I'm here in case it is. And we share a cup of coffee together, and then we reminisce. And I reminisce over the 90s quite a bit, because in the 90s, we actually had websites with character, and we had cool stuff like Winamp that was actually, you know, cool to use and easy to use and fast and all of that good stuff. And, all that good stuff. Right now, the Apollo Academy did a financial study based on Bloomberg data on the current IT bubble and compared it to the bubble in the 90s. Let me just get rid of this. And here we go. I'm going to expand this fully. So we have right here, you can see the bubble. The green is the indicator of the valuation of companies versus their true valuation as compared to like how they're actually doing. And you can see that it is massively higher than the bubble that existed in the 90s. Now, some of that can be attributed to things like inflation, more money being pumped into the IT industry. There's all kinds of things that play into it. However, there are some things that go against this, which is inflation is accounted for, so there are adjustments made. And this is the S&P 500, and you have to remember that 35% of the S&P 500 is made up of the Majestic 7. And just in case you don't remember what the Majestic 7 is, the Majestic 7 the Magnificent 7 is this: NVIDIA, Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Alphabet, Meta, and Tesla. So there is a huge overvaluation. And when you look at the amount of money being pumped into AI to the tune of $500 billion last year, the problem that this presents is when these AI companies hit a wall, and they are going to hit a wall. They're going to hit a wall. It's going to happen. This bubble is going to burst. The amount of impact that this is going to have on the stock market is going to be way bigger than it ever has been in the IT industry ever before. So that's fun. That's fun to think about. Guys, go learn fundamentals, okay? You just go look up my on my YouTube. Go look up the last intro to programming you'll ever need. Go look up fundamentals of programming. Pretty soon, we're about seven-ish months away from a serious issue that's going to make the entire, well, I hope the entire world step back and go, what the hell are we doing with all this AI stuff? And we're going to need programmers to step in. We're going to need good ones. Go learn now. Um, yeah, empty code. Yes. Yeah, I'm just quickly reading yeah, man. Good stuff. That's the way to do it. Yeah, go read the documentation, go read the manuals. I know it's harder, but that kind of a struggle can actually make you understand even more, honestly. So, that's great. Do that. Yeah, and AI is burning money faster than it's yeah, we know. We went over that. Again, episode 86, 87. We went over how they're spending trillions of dollars, usually billions, but trillions of dollars a year, and the return is millions, maybe tens of millions of dollars a year in terms of income, which means that they're all losing money, all of them, every single one. That is an unsustainable model. And you can see why a lot of this money is being pumped into, and the hope is for AGI because it's an escape hatch. They're hoping AI will save them from their own stupid decisions that they've made for the past 10 or 20 years, especially now, right? That's the hope, is that AI and AGI will get them out of this hole. And so they're putting there, it's like, it doesn't matter the cost, we have to get there, right? Okay, let's go over another one here. This one. OpenAI, Google, DeepMind, and Anthropic sound alarm. We may be losing the ability to understand AI. Newsflash, you already lost it. From day one, you lost it. Scientists from OpenAI, Google DeepMind, Anthropic, and Meta have abandoned their fierce corporate rivalry to issue a joint warning about AI safety. More than 40 researchers across these competing companies published a research paper today arguing that a brief window to monitor AI reasoning could close forever and soon. And here is the research paper. You can see that the abstract itself is super short, and it's essentially what the article says. They talk about the chain of thought monitoring, which we've covered in depth in all of these scientific studies, and we will only continue to cover it. There are a number of issues with regards to keeping an eye on what's going on inside of these models. There's memory constraints, context constraints. There are things called destructive forgetting, which means that the AI system will come up with ways of adjusting its own weights and biases, and kind of like removing the stuff that you would normally be able to monitor, and just removing the ability to monitor it through its own destructive processes while still coming out to the same result that it did before. There's issues with deceptive practices, misalignment, bad data leakage from like training data, memorization of answers as opposed to reasoning. By the way, there is no reasoning, there's zero reasoning, etc., etc. And then they go into like how we can make these things more monitorable. However, the problem that this article brings out, and this is why I wanted to go over the article, because it's a little bit easier to digest than going over the scientific paper, is they feel that there is a limit to how long they can continue keeping an eye on the very few things that they are currently able to keep an eye on. The paper drew endorsements from some of the field's most prominent figures, including Nobel Prize laureate Geoffrey Hinton, often called the godfather of AI. There's super safe intelligence people, who apparently are behind this, and so on and so forth. And as these things continue, the issue is that the divergence of LLM models, these models, to hide their own reasoning only gets more complicated. And on top of that, you add in all the things I talked about, where, for example, we saw this before in the distillation. If you don't know what distillation is, it's when you get one instance of a model to talk to another instance of the same model, and they just pass numbers from the parent to the child, and those numbers then train the child model to understand how the parent model got to a certain conclusion. That means that there's something inherent inside of the black box that's currently not being able to be monitored, where just these numbers, which have no direct, like a human will look at that and go, what the hell does this have to do with anything? But they will have meaning to the models themselves. We've already covered the science behind this. It's been 1 to 2 years that this has been known to be a problem, and it's only increasing and escalating as we attempt to put more safeguards and different adjustments into trying to figure out how this works. And so essentially they're saying, as we continue down this road, well, we're going to lose our ability to keep an eye on anything. And so there's now this race for safety. Well, I'm sorry, bros. I'm sorry, but your ship it bro mentality on these LLMs has made it so that that ship has sailed. There's no putting this back in the box, unfortunately. And as you continue down this road, you're going to find that as you attempt to put in more safeguards and you attempt to make more adjustments to try and continue to maintain your ability to monitor the system, you're actually going to be doing the exact opposite. This is the self-fulfilling prophecy at play right now. And then what happens is that they're worried that if they play their hand too much, their concern is like, well, we can't open it too much, because if we do, then people will have this like crazy amount of access into the systems. Bros, you're missing the forest from the trees. So anyways, this entire article just sums up the kind of like stupidity that goes on behind people who should otherwise be intelligent. They don't even understand what they're playing with. They don't understand the incompetence inside these systems. They're just the incapability of these systems to do the things that they think that it can do. And then they get scared about it because they didn't realize that it was going to go this way. How dumb do you have to be not to realize that it was going to end up here? And then you panic. And this is when things go bad. It's when they panic. When people start gathering together like this, and you have smart people with pedigrees getting together and going, oh my God, the world's going to end because we can't monitor this stuff. Then they're going to start making even more stupid decisions about how to retain control over this thing. And it's just going to get worse. This stuff is just going to get worse. Okay. So I don't know where this is going to lead exactly, but what I can say is that they're not going to succeed. All right. Let me see here. We've got another one here. Before we do another one, let me just make sure I'm caught up on chat. Yeah, oh my God. It's like, I feel like they already know it's over. They're just keeping the hype going. People believe it. Yeah, empty code. Oh my God says it's almost like people have been warning about this for years. Yep. Um, yeah, Vamp, there are some good use cases again, Vamp, but what are you paying to get those good use cases? And there are other ways to pay very little energy, and in terms of like effort to get the same results, and energy, like actual energy. You can get the same results for way less cost, like magnitudes of order way less cost. So I can't deny that there are good use cases, but yeah, there are other ways other than LLMs. We have other options. Yeah, empty code. You're among friends, empty code. The last few years, the world has gone mad. Yeah, yeah. Join Discord, empty code. Join the Discord. Just type in !Discord and hop on Discord. You'll see we talk about this kind of stuff all the time. We go deep into it, including technocracy. If you haven't heard about that, look up. I believe it's like episode 82, maybe 83, something like that. And we go over technocracy stuff. If you guys are really nice to me, I do have another Technocracy link prepared. Yeah, it's a deep dive. If you guys are really nice to me, okay, we'll talk more about Technocracy on this stream. But you guys have to be nice, make it, know. Anyways, we'll see. Yeah, I think AI can be useful for hyper specific tasks. It's the LLM faux intelligence, right? Turns out it's difficult to play God. That's right. Oh my God. Hey, Laughly, how you doing? Hey, Arakar, good to see you, man. Yeah, I'm having a good stream. I hope you're having a good day, man. Empty sounds like a great future dev. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, so and so the my argument would be that even though we know that AI does have positive effects in some cases, my argument would be that we can take those cases and we can recreate those outcomes with far better tools, a better in terms of we can create something that's far more narrow and specific, and that uses like the energy consumption between something narrow and specific, even just like an algorithmic data filtering kind of program with some basic code and maybe just a touch of machine learning. That kind of stuff we used to do even like in the early 2010s. We used to have that where you would just like pump numbers through a system, and these were like a very narrow set of algorithms that would just be very narrowly focused to a specific problem, and you could get some generally good results to help you along the way. We can still do that. We have it all. Like we have all the tools we need to solve all these problems, and we can do it way cheaper and way more effectively than these generalized hallucinating models that we just continue to spend trillions of dollars on. It's absolutely bonkers, man. I had a smart friend who worked on hardware. This guy doom scrolls Instagram as a way to rest, uses AI for coding 24/7, no longer actually reads or properly learns. 2025 internet user. Yep. Yep. Average internet user. Yep. Yeah, I've got some good stuff lined up today. Yeah, you guys are going to have to, I've got stuff about addiction with AI. I've got an article on that. How about since Laughly is here, we'll do one or two things here. All right. We'll do another UK one in a second here. Let's jump back into a couple of articles. So this one, now what's happening with Spotify? I just want you to be aware what's happening with Spotify is a twofold problem. Let me make sure that I've got the other Spotify one popped open here. I don't think I do right now. Oh no, we covered that one. That's right. Okay. So what's happening here, Spotify is publishing AI generated songs from dead artists without permission. So there are some deceased artists like Blaze Foley and Guy Clark. They did not get permission from their estates or labels, and they're just generating music from them and publishing them as if it came from these dead artists. Huh. Huh. Hmm. Now, we've already covered a related article. The more that Spotify and companies like this continue to do that, so you're going to start to see things like books that were written by people who are deceased. You're going to start to see things like music videos. You're going to start to see movies. You're going to start to see TV shows. You're probably even going to start to see things like video games and even maybe even programs, software programs. I mean, the list goes on. Things that are generated by people who have long been deceased and yet are now AI generated. This is going to continue to be a problem. I believe yesterday we went over an article where Spotify is publishing more and more AI bot listeners. Let's see if we can find out which one. Yeah, here we go. Spotify is releasing more AI generated music. I believe we went over this one yesterday. And what's happening here is that the more AI generated music they're producing, the more AI bots are coming in and listening to it. Spotify is going to essentially neuter their own advertising. What advertiser is going to want to pay for fake bot views? And I had to think about this since yesterday. And you know what I thought of? Here's what I thought. There is a way around this. There was somebody who mentioned this. Let me just talk about this briefly. I'm ignoring chat, all right? There was somebody who talked about this online and said, yeah, but you know what? When I do something like a Google search, so think about a Google search and you type in a prompt, not a prompt, but a query, and you come up with all the articles. Man, this sucks because I have to go through all the articles and figure out like which links are good, which ones are relevant, and then distill that information. Like it's really annoying, and I get hit with ads everywhere, and websites run slow, and all of that stuff. When I do the same search on an AI system, I get all of that result distilled for me because the AI knows what I'm looking for and understands like my preferences without the ads. You have you have an admission and then you have a problem. One is the admission. If anybody tells you that, what they're admitting is that they're vastly unsatisfied with the state of tech in the past 10 or 20 years. Because what they're doing is they're complaining about all the enshittification of stuff that I complain about here all the time. Stop leaning and relying on all of these third-party frameworks like React and Vue and Svelte and Vite and Python packages and NPM packages and Composer packages and all of this abstraction and obfuscation. Stop going to that as your default mode of operation. Of course, that's going to lead to slower, laggier, more buggy websites that have trash data, that want your ads, that want your subscriptions, because we've lost the ability for companies to make money in this industry. And then you've presented a problem, which is now what you're doing is you're providing the advertiser's solution by stating the problem. What you're saying is AI generated queries provide you a safe space to avoid all of this buggy crap that has no ads. Perfect. So if I'm an advertiser, you know what I'm going to do? Here's what I'm going to do. Beep, boop, 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 beep. Hello, Sam Altman? Yes. Hi. This is Spotify. Hi, yeah, this is a Spotify CEO. Yeah. We hung out, just the other day. Yeah, we did a bunch of stuff, probably some of it like, bordering on the illegal, because we're the bourgeois and we get to do whatever we want and kind of get away with it, right? We have so much money. The damn peasants have a safe space. What on earth, Sam Altman? What on earth possessed you to give the peasants a safe space from advertising? Listen, man, here's what I want you to do. I'm going to pay you a boatload of money that just comes out of my ass because, this entire industry is just made up of fake money. It's just monopoly money. I'm going to send you some of this monopoly money. And what I want you to do is I want you to inject ads into ChatGPT. And then Sam Altman goes, oh, I don't know, man. That might be asking for a little too much. Look, the best I can do, all right, is maybe just one ad at the beginning, all right? And then the Spotify CEO goes, okay, bro, I gotcha, all right? I'll accept that as long as you bring, some good stuff, some good stuff for us to have fun on the next yacht party. But what I really want you to do then is I want you to make sure that when people prompt certain prompts, that they end up on Spotify links, okay? I want you to guide the AI so it ends up on Spotify. I'll pay you boatloads of money. Or you know what? You can just have free access to my yacht for the next year. And Sam Altman goes, yeah, bro, now we're talking. That's exactly how this goes. That's what's going to happen. Your experience is currently safe, but it's not going to be safe for long. You don't think these people know exactly what they're playing? They do. And they know how to make money off of it, and advertising is going to find a way to end up in front of your eyeballs. The problem is that all of you smooth-brained AI hypists do not realize that you're actually just giving yourselves an even easier method to be affected emotionally and mentally and otherwise by the information that's provided to you by a sycophantic AI that's going to direct you in these paths and say, look, doesn't it give you the warm and fuzzies to have a prompt, and then I give you the answers and it aligns with the stuff that you like, and you go, yeah, man, it does. Yeah, man. And then you're like affected in one way or another, impacted in ways you don't even realize, which I'm not talking out of my ass here. We've gone over the scientific studies that prove that this happens. So all you're doing is just funneling more and more methods, more and more power to people that you shouldn't give this much power to. Your cognitive sovereignty should be one of the most fundamental things you should be protecting. And instead, what we seem to be doing is running headlong into a cognitive offloading. It's mind bending. And then you go, yeah, but at least I don't have to load up a slow website with a bunch of advertisements, though. In any case, there's my take on this kind of stuff that's happening, because I did have to think about it a bit more deeply. Like, why would they like neuter their own advertising abilities? And the answer is they're not. They're just providing a new avenue, and it's far more powerful because Google searches, for example, you do have to put in more effort into it. It's not as easy to manipulate you using Google searches, although doable. It's not as easy to manipulate you using social media, although doable. It's much easier to manipulate you using AI because you're already bought in. Okay, so I just want you to consider that the next time that you think about how these companies are going to operate and how they're going to find ways around, what seemingly seems like a self attack, if you will. Okay, let me find the next one. I'm going to do the UK one here. Then we're going to take a break, and we're going to see how nice you guys are to me and whether we're going to continue with some more fun stuff. Here we go. Now, I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. Ever since the Queen died, ever since the Queen died, it's been nothing but downhill for the UK. Nothing but downhill. I bet you, is Laugh there? I don't know if Laugh's there. Is Laugh there? Is anybody from the UK there? I bet you the fish and chips don't even taste as good since the Queen died, right? Come on, be honest with me. The fish and chips don't taste as good. I bet you. I'll give you a minute. I know there's like, I didn't know the Queen was such a good blue teamer. Yeah, the Queen's a good blue teamer. That's right, Piercoin. How you doing? What's up, programming game? So Doomer, yeah, programming game. It is Doomer. You're right. But there is a positive, which is this stuff's gonna hit a wall, and then we're gonna have to make a readjustment, and some of that readjustment at least will be positive. Yeah, just by the nature of its own system, it's not all. It's not like this is just gonna never reach a point where we go like, what the hell are we doing? We'll reach that point, and then we'll make an adjustment. It'll be good. How's that a positive that it'll hit a wall? Because it can't go too far. That's why. And we already know how to solve a lot of these problems. Like, we have smart programmers. We know how to work around stuff. Some of the stuff that is not going to be done by LLMs anymore, we know how we're gonna do them differently. We're already looking into like the psychological elements of how it impacts your brain. We're already getting insight into that. So these LLMs have a limit. They're going to reach their limit if they haven't already. I kind of think they have, and it just means that we're going to be able to there's going to be some bad outcomes from that, but we're also going to have some good outcomes of that. Isn't a better positive that it works as intended and improves people's lives? The premise there is that it can work as intended. It can't, programming game. That's what I'm saying. It can't. That's what I mean by there's a wall. These LLMs cannot. At the very least, not the way that they exist right now. Could we come up with I would think it would have to take a fundamental revisit of the entire concept. And then maybe we'll get to something better. But right now, the way it is, I just I don't think it's even possible. It's not something there is no as intended possibility. It's better that smart people focus their efforts toward more productive avenues. Yeah, all that money that we're spending on energy consumption, all that energy, all that stuff will get redirected. So the end result is crap. LLMs were not it. Crap, the stock market took a major hit. Crap, all of these companies might go under, jobs affected, etc. But the positive out of that is, well, okay, now we have a bunch of energy, just like Amagad is saying, we can redirect that towards better stuff. We can solve problems that LLMs pointed to. And LLMs have pointed to problems that they did kind of, support. That's a good thing, right? There is a positive out of this. There indeed is. It's just that it currently currently it's very doomer. I have to agree with you, programming. It's very doomer, but there is a positive. What metric would one use to say it improved life? Yeah, you would have to provide a metric. That's hard to do. I'm talking in generalities, to be fair. All right. I am very doomer right now. I am very doomer. Programming game. I'm not going to take that away from you. I don't focus on the positive as much. That is an extremely valid criticism. People say that all the time. You do have to be more positive. You have to state the positive stuff. And I feel like the positive is implied in what I'm saying because I see it, but not everybody sees that, right? So again, just to be clear, currently we're in a bad situation. The current situation is really, really bad. People are suffering. We're wasting a ton of money. We're headed down a very bad path. There is a good outcome out of this because if I'm right, then these LLMs have already hit a wall, and we're just going to realize that hopefully soon, and then we're going to readjust. And right now we have people who at least have maintained their mental capacity to assist in the readjustment. That's good. Now we have stuff that's redirected. Will this continue indefinitely? I don't see how it can. Right? That's good. I don't see how these things can continue indefinitely. You cannot just continue to eat up money and energy like this at an indefinite rate forever and ever and not come to a point where you have to take a step back at a global level and go, what the hell's going on here? We got to readjust, right? So, yeah. That's not a good outcome. What? Assuming that there is a wall, realizing the wall is a good outcome, but the wall itself isn't good. Oh, I see what you're saying. Um, you're saying the wall isn't good because it means that the idealistic nature that started this process is gone. I think I see where you're coming from, programming game. Yeah, but you know what, programming game? I would still say that's good. You know why? Because the idealistic nature then not it wasn't discovered, but it also hasn't gone away. If I'm going to be honest here, if you think that LLMs are the only way to get to that idealistic nature that you're pointing to, I don't think it's the only way. I think we're spending a bunch of energy and money on a path that doesn't get us to that idealistic nature. We're actually going further and further away from it. So I'm kind of making the argument that it's okay. Like it means that it's still, it's a goal we can still work towards. Ignore idealistic, sure, but I would still make the same argument. The wall is neutral. Yeah, maybe it is neutral, but I understand where you're coming from, programming. But it hasn't gone away, right? Even if we hit that wall, it doesn't mean that the improvement of a person's life through the use of technology has gone away. It just means that we have to find a different path to that. That's all. That's not a bad thing. It's still available to us. It just means now we have all these resources available to us to direct that. Okay. So, okay, now I'm going to ignore chat for a minute. We're going to do one more article. All right. Now, like I said, the queen has died. Fish and chips don't taste as good. Laughably would agree with that. And unfortunately, things only get worse from here. How so? OpenAI is getting closer with the UK government. The company signed a non-binding agreement that could lead it to invest in the UK's AI infrastructure. You know, I don't know what it is about this picture. I don't know what it is about this picture of Starmer here. Is that his name? Starmer? But I just feel like this guy gets up in the morning and he goes over to the bathroom and he looks at himself in the mirror and then he takes his phone out and he opens up the OpenAI app and he goes, "OpenAI, how awesome am I?" And OpenAI says, "You're amazing," on repeat for like 5 minutes while he like brushes his teeth and stuff. And then he goes out and like says whatever. Anyways, I don't know why. It gives me that like that picture. In any case, so OpenAI and the UK are planning on teaming up. It is non-binding, which means they could pull out at any moment. But OpenAI already has offices in London. So they're already kind of embedded into the UK just generally. And the entire concept here is that OpenAI is going to help the UK in building data centers for more AI. So we're talking about infrastructure so that the UK can do more AI. Now, the reason why they would want to do this is because we've covered this before. We covered an article that went over how, briefly went over how the UK has said that it is using AI in order to at least inform some of their federal or national decisions inside the cabinet, but they did not specify how. They would not specify how it's being used. Nobody actually knows how. They're just saying, "Yep, we use AI to inform our decision making in certain aspects of governmental duties." So this doesn't surprise me that they're going to team up with AI. And if I had to guess, it's just a guess, I would say that they're probably going to carry through with this as they dive deeper and deeper into AI and integrating AI into the entire ecosystem of the government. We went over another article where I believe I don't remember all the governmental terms in the UK because I'm from Canada, eh? And I'm sorry, all the UK people. I'm so sorry, and thank you, by the way. But there was a group of people who did an efficiency study on departments that could be axed in order to save money. And they used AI to come up with like a bunch of departments, and then they came up with like some like a homogenized 10% savings across the board. And it was literally 10%. And the person in government who had to review that was like, "Wait, are you telling me that all of these cuts lead to each one of them a 10%, like just a flat 10% each and every one? There's no way. There's nuance in here, surely." This screams of AI, calculations and whatnot. So again, the UK here is getting deep into bed with AI. They're cuddled up. One of them's feeling a little poke on the back, right? There's a hint. There's some heavy breathing. There's some heavy petting, right? This is going to lead to something. And pretty soon, there might be some pregnancy involved here through follow-up actions as they just cuddle closer in bed together. All right. Now, we're an hour and a half in. Gonna be a cold winter. Yeah, our energy production already dropped 25% from 2008. We don't need shitty data centers. Yep, you already have problems. You don't need more. Let's see how many I have. I have one, two. I have 3, 4, 5, 6. I have a technocracy one. I have 7, 8, maybe 9. No, not that one, not that one. 10 on quantum stuff. 11, 12, 13. Yeah, I've got about 13 more pretty good articles. But usually I end this at an hour and a half. So you guys are going to have to tell me. You guys are going to have to speak up if you want me to continue, these are some pretty good articles, or we can end it here and we can save some for Monday. But there's a longish technocracy one. There's a quantum one. There's some more AI ones that are pretty good. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know what you guys are feeling on this fine Friday. Have I bored? Have I bored you guys beyond your ability to continue? I know these things can get boring, okay? I try and be entertaining, but I'm not very good at it. I realize this. I'm also very doomerish, all right? Okay, I'm also very doomerish, okay? So I get it. Empty was about to go to bed. Well, there we go. I'm staying up. Oh my God's gonna stick around. Yeah, D-Daver's here for it. We've got two people. Okay. Okay. If one more person wants me to keep going, that's like a 30% vote on the total number of viewers I have. Oh my God. Oh my God puts in tip. Yeah, I mean if you really want to, you can send in another tip. That'll sway it for sure, but um Sophie, I'm not sure what that emoji is. I'm not even sure what. Yeah, Vamp's like, nah, I'm out of here. Vamp's out. Vamp has to scrounge around for food scraps because he lives in some unknown country in Europe that doesn't even exist on the map. Um, so it's about his time. Let me check the time. Yeah, yeah, it's about that time. Yeah, he has to go find food laying about, strewn about on the streets, chasing after rats to see what they didn't finish eating. Oh, it means you're all ears? Okay. Well, there we go. Now we have 30% of viewers. Okay, let's do another one. So now the question is, which one should I do? Man, which one should I do? I have so many good ones now. Okay, let's do a quantum one. Let's do a quantum one. I'm going to, thanks to somebody in Discord who knows at the very least a reasonable amount about quantum computing. I'm going to be pulling the thread on quantum computing, and it starts here with this article as kind of a light introduction. You've probably heard about quantum computing and all of its woo woo, voodoo magic ways of computing, and it's going to crack all of your encryption and find all the secrets and all of that stuff and yada, yada, yada. I'll be pulling on that thread, but let's just start with this one, a light introduction into it. Quantum code breaking? You'd get further with an 8-bit computer, an abacus, and a dog. Computer scientist Peter Gutman tells the Reg why it's bollocks. The U.S. National Institute for Standards and Technology has been pushing for the development of post-quantum cryptographic algorithms since 2016. If large-scale quantum computers are ever built, they will be able to break many of the public key crypto systems currently in use. Peter Gutman, a professor of computer science at the University of Auckland, New Zealand, thinks PQC is bollocks, nonsense for our American readers, and said as much in a 2024 presentation, Why Quantum Cryptanalysis is Bollocks. And here is the presentation. Thank you for whoever... Hang on. It's boil. It's boil ox. Okay, laugh. It's boil bollocks. Boil ox. Bull. I don't know. Shut up, Laughly. Shut it. Okay. Okay. Your bollocks is bollocks. Okay. Here it is. Did somebody just send a tip? Freaking hell, you guys. Holy crap! I'm gonna just send a freaking tip. Oh my God. Holy crap, man. You're definitely making it worth my while. P is stored in the bollocks. Okay, well, Amagod just sent a tip. Can we get W's in chat for Amagod and Sophie? But for Amagod in particular, Amagod just sent a tip for $140. Reaching my goal, which I now have to increase. Please, W's in chat. Holy crap, Amagod. Okay, well, I guess Jeez, man. Okay, I guess I'm doing a long stream. That was way more. Um, yeah, I genuinely don't know how to thank you properly, man. Thank you. That that's huge. Um, I will make sure I put it to good use. I promise I'll make sure I give everybody as much bang for the buck as I can. That's yeah. Between Sophie and you and the subs that I get on Twitch, all of your support, it's yeah, thank you. That means a lot, man. Thank you. Oh my god. I really appreciate it. Yeah, now I can buy proper clothes. Vamp is right. Jeez, holy crap. Keep doing what you're doing. Okay. All right. I got this. I'm a professional. All right. Yeah, W, man. W. Thank you. Oh my god. Thank you. I can start wearing clothes and don't make me look like a homeless drug user. You know what, Vamp? Forget it. Forget it. Okay, thanks again. Thanks everybody for all the support. I appreciate it. Okay, so I guess we're going into it. Let's do it. So this is the paper from Peter Gutman. He goes into how the quantum, the kind of like the history of quantum, let's say, programming and computers generated out of, well, he takes a more historical look, like what kinds of things led to it, and he breaks it down. Just these seem to be just like a presentation that he did, and so he's got some pictures and some slides and things like this. However, the article does a pretty good job of summarizing what he found. So let's read what he found. Gutman's argument is simple. To this day, quantum computers, which he regards as physics experiments rather than pending products, haven't managed to factor any number greater than 21 without cheating. So there's two elements here. One, there are no real-world products that any consumer can get their hands on in terms of quantum computing. So where is the benefit so far? All of these things are experimental. And just like AI, they require a huge belief in the end goal outcome of them. And they require a bunch of money, a bunch of energy being directed to it, and a bunch of hardware capabilities to make them happen, even in just a purely experimental setting. And then what? Then what do you get out of that? Well, just like AI, you're not getting much, are you? The current quantum computers can only factor a number greater than 21, but they have to cheat to do it. Quantum computers and PQC are both enormously complex. Both the common process for cracking RSA public key encryption is relatively straightforward. But the common process for cracking RSA public key encryption is relatively straightforward. In other words, there's a difference here in that RSA encryption cracking is a straightforward thing, but then you have these complex systems to do something straightforward. So then you have to factor in some mathematical equations here. If you know about some of the NP times Q, mathematics that are used to get you to a particular, prime number, things like this, then you can see how this plays out. He breaks it down. So he provides an example where N is 21, P could be 3, Q could be 7 for a not very secure 5-bit RSA implementation. When N is 10, 24, 2048, finding two prime numbers requires a tremendous amount of computational power. And so he kind of describes the differentiation there. Now, the claim is that quantum computers are going to be able to essentially find a very quick path to what are the prime numbers that get you to a key that unlocks the encryption. That's the claim. The claim is that these quantum computers are going to be able to go like, and then they find the right key. And so the right key would be, these factorial numbers to get you to, whatever prime you need, right? And so encryption essentially would just be a thing of the past, because all current encryption methods would just, they would be instantly crackable in a moment. Some engineers, apparently the claim is, some engineers claim quantum code cracking could be a thing within 2 decades. So they're saying everybody has to start preparing for this. However, when these systems were used to compute a factor to the number of 21, it failed. The algorithm worked 14% of the time due to rampant qubit errors. And then this leads into a thing called D-Wave. And D-Wave has these special computers that apparently are finely tuned. Does this sound familiar to anyone? They are finely tuned to do better on these kinds of problems. However, I can't remember his name already. I've already forgotten his name. Peter Gutman says these are all tricks. Everything that they're using to get you to these results are all tricks. Quantum factorization is performed using sleight of hand numbers that have been selected to make them very easy to factorize using a physics experiment and, by extension, a VIC-20, an 8-bit computer, an abacus, and a dog. Does this sound familiar at all? Kind of like the training data or the software, the benchmarks that these LLMs are being trained against or used to provide, some kind of metric, like look at how well these things run. All they're doing is sleight of hand tactics, but with quantum computers as well. And as the article continues, Peter essentially makes the case that this is all hand wavy, too little, too late. Everybody's kind of locked into this path and they can't find a way out. So they have to hope that if they throw more money and more hardware and more effort into this path, that they're going to get to the point of quantum computing. There's another problem with this, though, and we're going to get into, at least one of those problems, including more. So this bold area kind of touches on further problems that we're going to cover in future articles. Contrary to popular claims, quantum algorithms don't try all solutions at once. Instead, they carefully manipulate qubits to amplify the probability of measuring a useful answer at the output while suppressing the probability of measuring any other answer. It's roughly similar to a magician's card trick. Rather than checking every card in the deck for the one that was chosen, the magician uses a clever sequence of steps to make the chosen card more likely to appear without actually knowing what it is. Compared to classical algorithms, quantum algorithms can more effectively scale with problem size. This means that for a sufficiently large problem, they may be able to compute an answer more efficiently in time, energy, or cost than classical alternatives. For smaller problems, it is likely that classical computers will retain a clear comparative advantage for the foreseeable future due to the overheads in quantum computing. So I hope that makes sense to everyone. I thought it was pretty clear. Essentially, the quantum systems that are being used for computing solutions is just a way to statistically determine what would be the most likely path to the most correct answer, and then exclude the least likely ones. You can already see a problem with that, though, right here from the get-go. What if it statistically, through the probabilities determines that the least likely path ends up actually actually being the correct path. And then there are other problems that are inherent to these quantum computing systems, which we'll continue digging into down the road. So there you go. I thought this was a good one as an introduction into the quantum computing thread, because I feel like it has a very big overlap with the AI stuff we talk about these days. God says, so they're basically making really expensive Rube Goldberg machines. In a way, yeah. In a way, yes. Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it's like seeing AI all over again. Okay, now speaking of AI, let's go back to this for a minute. I did cover an article previously. It was a few weeks ago now, and the FDA pushed an AI system that they were going to integrate very, very quickly. They called it ELSA. And they were going to use this system, this AI system, to help it to approve new drugs. And didn't we call it when we read that article? We called it that this was going to cause problems for the FDA. And sure enough, the FDA is now finding that ELSA is making up non-existent studies, something commonly referred to as hallucinating. The AI will also misrepresent research, according to those employees in the FDA who have to use it. Anything that you don't have time to double check is unreliable. It hallucinates confidently, one unnamed FDA employee told CNN. So, shit. The FDA is relying on this completely ridiculously stupid, system to make critical decisions about drugs at a federal level. How on earth are these people so blindsided that they don't realize the issues? They're so anyways, I don't know. In any case, this is going to continue at least for a little while. I think, just to add a positive spin to this, okay, I think what's going to happen here is this is going to be such a big deal when the FDA makes a very serious decision that has a very serious impact, and they can point the finger at this kind of like ELSA AI system. They're going to rethink their use. And the more that these kinds of problems arise, the more people are going to rethink their use, and we're going to readjust our use of AI. Unfortunately, though, right now, these people are so bought in, they're naming the damn thing. I don't get it. Like, yeah, it hallucinates confidently. Yeah. I just don't understand. In any case, thought I'd bring this one up as an update to the FDA stuff. Hey, Pig, how is that different than the studies themselves? The studies themselves don't hallucinate. Like, people can reference things incorrectly, but it happens a lot less because there's a check that has to happen with hand-rolled studies. We have we have this. I'll show you what we have. We have AI generated studies in entirety, and they get passed by peer review processes because there's so many of them that the peer reviewers don't have time to properly check them. So it's, even if you could make the case that you would have the same problem with a human generated study, sure, but you wouldn't have that problem in mass. Between 2020 and 2024, there were 3.2 million suspected AI generated studies. That's an increase of, in some areas of the scientific community, it's like a 20% increase in AI generated studies. Peer reviewers are going to be inundated with this stuff. And that's if you can make the case that, Humans can make the same mistakes. Would a human really make this mistake though? And then you add in the fact that that a peer reviewer, has to kind of like not check it as thoroughly as they can because they don't have time to anymore. You add in all these factors and it causes a problem, right? Your migraine has returned. I'm sorry. Oh my God. $140 and I made your migraine return. I apologize. Okay, let me see what else we got here. I've got a few more fun ones. Let me see. Not that one. Okay. Yeah. Let's talk about this one very briefly. All right. Here's a brief one. Oh, I already had it open. Jeez. Billionaires convince themselves AI chatbots are close to making new scientific discoveries. I'm doing the equivalent of vibe coding, except it's vibe physics. Generative artificial intelligence tools like ChatGPT, Gemini, and Grok have exploded in popularity as AI becomes mainstream. These tools don't have the ability to make new discoveries on their own, but billionaires are convinced that AI is on the cusp of doing just that. And the latest episode of the All In podcast helps explain why these guys think AI is extremely close to revolutionizing scientific knowledge. I'll go down this thread with ChatGupta or Grok, and I'll start to get to the edge of what's known in quantum physics. And then I'm doing the equivalent of vibe coding, except it's vibe physics, Kalanick explained. And we're approaching what's known, and I'm trying to poke and see if there's breakthroughs to be had, and I've gotten pretty damn close to some interesting breakthroughs just doing that. Have you gotten to any breakthroughs? No. The answer is no, you haven't gotten to any breakthroughs, okay? So then they talk about the Grok failure. There are words I cannot say, so I have to kind of skip it. I pinged Elon on it at some point. I'm just like, dude, if I'm doing this and I'm super amateur hour physics enthusiast, like what about all those PhD students and postdocs that are super legit using this tool? Apparently he was using pre-Grok 4 and he was getting these kinds of potential breakthroughs, not actual breakthroughs by his own admission, not actual breakthroughs, but very close to breakthroughs. Okay. And then the entire, his entire, say, interview here is that these things are going to get us to a point where we're going to start seeing scientific breakthroughs coming out of these AI chatbots. On the other hand, though, he then says this in the same interview. In the same interview, he says this, okay? Kalanick emphasized that you have to double and triple check to make sure that you really got something, making clear he understood that AI chatbots just make things up much of the time. But he still seemed convinced that the thing holding back Grok was conventional wisdom rather than the natural limitations of the tech. Yes, vibe physics is only held back by conventional wisdom. That's it. That's all. When these models are fully divorced from having to learn on the known world, and instead can just learn synthetically, you can just give it a problem and it's just going to figure it out. Musk revealed a similar line of thinking recently when he suggested general artificial intelligence was close because he had asked Grok about materials science that are not in any books or on the internet. The idea, of course, is that Musk had hit the limits of known science rather than the limit of his scientific understanding. The billionaire really seems convinced that Grok was working on something new, and here it is. This is how I felt when asking Grok for, questions about materials science that are not in any books or on the internet. However, we can answer this simply by the nature of what LLMs are. If an LLM is a statistical word model, then it makes sense that it's going to occasionally statistically piece together things that are not in existence in any book or on the internet, because it takes bits and pieces of other things and then thesaurusizes them into what you would see as something novel and unique. And so you go, oh, Grok 4 is going to solve physics problems. No, it's not. You just don't have a fundamental understanding of how your own product works. That's all. And you really, really desperately want this thing to work the way it does. So that's basically the end of the article. Nothing else is really, of note to bring up here. But there you go. These people are somehow, on the one hand, aware of the limitations of the thing they're using. They understand that it hallucinates and makes stuff up. They even understand how it works. But then on the other hand, they're like, but it's going to solve physics problems. And boy, when I use it, I get this close. I'm like this close to solving a physics problem, bro. One more model, bro. One more prompt, bro. Conventional wisdom, bro. Yeah, bro. We're going to get there, bro. We're going to solve physics. We're going to solve programming. We're going to solve science. We're going to cure cancer. Don't worry, bro. One more data center, bro. One more nuclear power center, bro. Just a few more NVIDIA GPU cards, bro. Just a bit more percentage share of the entire US stock market, bro. Just a few more $1 trillion, bro. We're right there, bro. 4 years running. 4 years running. AI can for sure make novel stuff. No, it can't. It cannot make novel stuff. In order to make novel stuff, programming, you would have to state that it would make stuff up that that would be through a mechanism that it could do so systemically. It doesn't make novel stuff. What it does is it statistically pieces things together, and out of that comes some things that are novel to you. It itself is not coming up with novel things. It does not have reasoning capabilities. It's not like, oh, hey, this is something that I've never seen before. It's all just statistical word modeling. So there is a distinction. If you drill down into the distinction of how it comes to the novelty of it, that's how. And so we might see it as novel because we didn't really put those words together before, maybe. But yeah, the result might be novelty. Yeah, I think we're saying the same thing, programming. Yeah, it can happen because if you apply enough statistics over enough words, you could come up with something that you haven't seen before, potentially, or something that looks like something you've never seen before. There is a bit of subjectivity there, but you have to be really careful about when you say that, because it's not the system. It's not the system that is coming up with novelty, right? That's the key difference. And you don't want to be associating the system with, look, it's coming up with novel stuff, therefore it can solve physics problems. Those are two very different worlds, right? If you have two APIs that have never been connected and AI connects them, that's novel. By that definition, yeah, I guess, yeah. It would have to depend on your definition. Yeah, it would have to depend of your definition of novelty. But if that's your definition of novelty, I'm okay with that. I'm okay, But again, how? Yeah, that's kind of a tough one, right? All you're demonstrating is that novelty in itself isn't valuable. Well, I think that's kind of what programming game is kind of pointing to. Novel is new, not necessarily groundbreaking, which points to value, right? Groundbreaking would point to value. Whereas just being new could be done by, like, you could even take programming games argument here and steelman it and say you don't even require an LLM to do that. You could just have like a random number generation machine, and it could come up with a series of like like a limited narrow, I don't know, set of algorithms that it randomly goes through, and it generates an output that nobody's seen before. And then there's a separate question of how valuable is that? The novelty of it is not necessarily equatable to the value. Some physics discoveries are novel, but not valuable. Right, but it can't solve physics. It's not going to solve physics problems. The idea of it solving physics problems are so far removed from the actual capabilities. And the amount of, and even if you could say, well, you just give it enough time and enough power, then it could statistically come up with a bunch of words that are an answer to a physics problem. And then it would say, well, what's the cost to that? Right? How much time are you spending when you could redirect all that energy to actual problems that we could solve right now in physics without having to go to these other things, right? There is a trade-off there, which is how novel is a thing, what's the likelihood you're going to get there, etc. Discovery of quarks was novel, but probably not. There is a difference. Yes, there is a difference between something that's new and valuable. Yeah, I can agree with that. Yeah. But again, I just want to be clear that I'm trying to be clear about like what the LLM is capable of doing. The LLM is not actually doing this thing where it's like thinking about a physics problem, breaking it down, running corollary evidence and cross-referencing and then coming up with stuff. It's just pulling words together, right? And so sometimes, yeah, you run that enough times, you're going to see something. It's really, really important that you get that at the very least I'm clear about what it does, so people don't mistake it as like, oh, it is solving stuff. It's not solving anything. Thinking part doesn't necessarily matter, not for novelty's sake. Not for novelty's sake. It doesn't. You can create something novel out of an auto-generated algorithm, but that's about where it starts and ends. That's where that premise starts and ends. That's it. If we hadn't discovered Pythagorean and AI pointed it to us, it'd still be useful. That's kind of a bad example programming game, because if we wouldn't have AI unless we discovered Pythagorean first. It's kind of a prerequisite to maths, or it's not maybe a prerequisite, but it's a fundamental concept, and you kind of need that to get there. So that example in particular, you might have to come up with a different example for that. I understand where you're trying to go with it. I get it. But yeah. Sure, but I don't know all the known unknown math problems. Okay. Yeah. No, I understand. Understand. Yes. All right. Do you feel like you've sufficiently got your point across, or you seem to be? Yeah, I don't know if you think I'm disagreeing with you. I'm not really disagreeing with you. I think we're saying the same thing, but I'm trying to put an emphasis on the value, right, and what it does, right? How do we know where to use it? Yeah, I think okay, just making sure. Because you keep finding different ways to state what you've said, and I'm wondering if you think I disagree, because I kind of don't. Like, yeah, this thing can come up with things that are new. You could call that novel. Yeah, we agree. We agree. Yeah, yeah. Just making sure you understand what that means. Okay, let me mark that one done. I have a few more fun ones. Okay, we did that one. We did that one. We did that one. We covered the quantum one. We got the FDA. Okay. Okay. Here, we're going to do 3 more, because that was a huge drop from Oh My God, and I think you guys deserve it. We're going to do 3 more, and then that'll be the stream. We disagree on value, but you can move on. That's okay. That's fair. I think we do disagree on value, but that's fair. That's fair. I understand. But I think I can understand why we disagree on value. We can talk about it after too, or on Discord or something. Whatever. We can have We can debate on that. So here's the next one. Okay, I'm ignoring chat again. We'll go through the next two, then I'll take a break, and then we'll go through one of the last one. It'll be a longer one, but it'll be a good one on technocracy. Here is one where we go over the supply chain and risks of large language models. We can pretty much read the abstract on this, but when we open up the PDF, which I'm going to do, I'm going to point to some specifics here. This study goes over the fact that most other scientific studies, when they look at the security of LLMs, judge the security of LLMs by things like prompt injection or distillation techniques or training data leakage or backdoors inside of the systems that the system prompts and things like that. However, what people forget is that these systems have to start somewhere. If you're going to create a system like this, if you're going to create an LLM, it's got to run somewhere. There's some code that has to start somewhere. There's a data set that has to start somewhere. All of these things require some amount of technical path that exists outside of the LLM. And guess what that path is? Code. And what do I constantly complain about with regards to the tech industry when it comes to coding? People these days have a massive overdependency on libraries, frameworks, abstractions, obfuscations. And guess what? When it comes to creating these LLMs, it's no different. And so now if we go into it, what they've done, they looked at 3,859 LLM applications, including ones that are run locally. So things like you go to the app store, you download an app, and it's LLM enabled, and it's just an LLM that runs on your phone if it can handle that. Just as an example. 109,211 models, 2,474 data sets, and 8,862 libraries, along with their dependency relationships. To assess the security posture of the LLM ecosystem, we extract a total of 1,555 risk-related issues. 50 for applications, 325 for models, 18 for data sets, and 1,229 for libraries, sourced from various public vulnerability databases and repositories. So you can kind of see where I'm going with this. What they took a look at is, well, how does one go ahead and create an LLM application to begin with? Whether you're OpenAI, Gemini, Mistral, Midjourney, specialized applications that you sell as like one-offs, RAGs, MCPs, the data sets involved in them, etc., etc. And of course, you're going to need to do things like pull in Python as an example. So let me go down to, I believe it's, where is it? I believe it's down here. No, not this one exactly, but it's close. I remember reading this. Come on, where are you? Implications. Yeah, so it's down here. So they discovered that the dependency of all of these LLM systems numbers in the, at the very least, hundreds of different types of dependencies, which then branch off to tens to hundreds of different web dependencies out of that. So data sets would be one dependency, which has then a further dependency to a bunch of other stuff. And then they have programming dependencies, which then have other dependencies to like third-party systems, especially with Python, etc., etc. So in the conclusions here, they go over, well, let me go back. Let me go up here. Where did it go? I just had it. One sec. I will find it. I swear I will find it. I just had it right here. Okay. Yes. Right here. So there's a dependency risk, number of vulnerable dependencies per app. And essentially what they did was they took the total number of apps that were running on some kind of LLM based like underpinning. And the more apps that they looked at, the more the vulnerable dependency per app number went up. And then it kind of flatlined because there was a point where it's like, well, geez, some of these apps are are dependent on like so many similar things as many other apps that you can essentially count the number of dependencies as the same as every other app we've seen before. So the entire concept here is that data sets are vulnerable, databases are vulnerable, the code that operates this stuff is vulnerable. You can see some of the code libraries, the packages, PyArrow, Torch, LangChain. You have Pillow up here, you have Paddle. All of these things have, look at the number of critical vulnerabilities here, 36 at the top. And the code that operates underneath that makes the LLM capable of running to begin with has these third-party dependencies, which are in and of themselves capable of being exposed because they have vulnerabilities in them. Now what you can do is you can consider how these LLMs are being used to produce even more apps like this. So the more that you generate all of these dependencies, the more that you use AI to vibe code more apps, more packages, more instances of LLMs and so on, the more you stop looking at what your dependency tree is as you generate these things, which means that the number of vulnerabilities will at the very least not really decrease, if not go higher. You can look at the dependency depth in terms of number of apps. You can see that there are 1,799 apps that have you can see it's here. Yeah, 1,799 apps that have a dependency depth of 8. And a dependency depth of 8 is actually really, really deep. The number of libraries, about the same thing. Right? So all of these are attack vectors that exist simply by the nature of getting these things to run in the first place. So unfortunately, what this means is that they come built in. These systems come built in with a bunch of vulnerabilities across a variety of different, let's say, moving pieces that make the LLMs function. And we haven't even begun to consider what it might look like if somebody took a dependency like Pillow from the Python toolchain and started to use it to manipulate the creation of newer models. And like, what would that even look like? We don't know. As far as we know, it hasn't happened yet. And when it does happen, what's going to happen to the fundamental underpinnings of all these LLM systems? And the more that this kind of stuff goes swept under the rug or ignored, the more that we're just going to dog food our own vulnerabilities here. And we're just going to generate more ultimately, because we know that LLMs like to generate insecure code at a rate of sometimes like 90%. That's been scientifically proven. So this is a very serious problem. We're putting a lot of trust on some very shaky foundations. The good news, we know where the foundation is shaky. We could go clean it. But are we going to do that? That's the question, right? Okay, then the next AI article. This one. We know that there is a huge problem with AI-generated scientific output. And I believe we went over a study, or maybe it's an upcoming one, where 20%, in some cases, in some subsections of the scientific community, AI-generated papers caused an increase of scientific papers being submitted at a rate of something like 20% between 2020 and 2024. I'm kind of spitballing those numbers, but I vaguely remember those numbers. We did that recently. And so we have this article: AI will soon be able to audit all published research. What will that mean for public trust in science? And essentially, I don't really need to read this article very much, but the answer to bad AI generated output in mass, by the way, to the point where the entire scientific community, the NIH, said, please stop. We're not going to give you grants anymore if we see AI slop. There are like what was it? It was the nutrition. There was a nutrition portion of NIH that said, please stop sending us AI generated papers. Our peer reviewers can't keep up, and we're pressured to publish stuff like this guy. And it's happening to a huge degree. Okay. And now what the answer to this, the answer to all this AI generated scientific slop is to have AI police the literature. Machine learning services such as Image Twin and Proofig now scan millions of figures for signs of duplication, manipulation, and AI generation. This to me seems like the upper echelons of stupidity. The thing that caused a problem in the first place is going to be the thing that saves us from our own problem. This is exactly how the tech industry operates. We are so stupid, we create a problem for ourselves. Let's create a new problem to solve the previous problem, as if somehow that's smart. We know that these AI systems have high error rates, on average 50%, and that's on top line models. We went over a 2025 study that proved that. We know they hallucinate confidently, which means that they can hallucinate papers saying or having content in them that they don't have, and then either flagging them or allowing them. We know that their distillation of information is not very accurate. It's something like a 20 to 30% error rate on information distillation, and then they provide confident answers that aren't real answers. And then when you try and like push the AI to say like, are you sure this is right? Are you sure? It just continues to do that. And we want these things to be checking against themselves. I don't see how this is a good idea. This is only going to, what it's going to do is it's going to give people who believe this stuff, the scientific community, it's going to give them a level of confidence that they shouldn't have. It's going to give them the confidence that's like, hey, we've solved the problem of AI generated slop in the scientific community. Now we can hand over our responsibilities of checking this stuff, and it's just going to kind of like manage itself. And now we just get to kind of sit back and review papers that are of interest to us and make huge leaps and bounds in science. That's not what's going to happen. It's not going to happen that way. These systems cannot operate this way. We have also covered how AI generated output, when passed from one instance of a model to another, this is not distillation, by the way, this is just strictly communication between two models, causes all kinds of weird outcomes because the AI generated output from one model to another has this weird kind of homogenized language that creates weirdness in the model that's eating it. This is why dog fooding is really bad. This is also a known problem when AI generates a bunch of websites and you put that out on the web and then you do a web search and then it finds those websites again. And so it just kind of eats its own slop. It creates a huge problem where it just spirals out of control. This is what's going to happen here. These are how these systems operate. Again, we've been over the data. It shows it happening all over the place. I don't see why this is a good thing. This is a very bad thing. It's going to provide false confidence. But I guess full speed ahead until we realize that this is happening. What's going to happen when we're 3 years in and we have people who are doing real work in the scientific community and we have to tell them to throw out their work and do it all over again because we got inundated with so much AI slop that we can't tell the difference, or it's going to take too much effort to tell the difference. So we have to throw out the last few years of work and make people redo their hard work all over again from scratch. That's not a very good future to head towards. This stuff is really bad. And this in particular, I'm not seeing a positive outcome outside of we have to throw away a bunch of work and restart. This one's hard to see the positive outcome out of it. Okay, so I'm going to take a break. And then if you guys want, I'll go into a technocracy one. Next up, AI to police the AI, checking the AI, yeah. AI scanners are new antivirus. Yeah, what's up, D? We interrogated ourselves, found we did nothing wrong. That's right, Sophie, yeah. So this will be the last one. It's last thing, a bit of a longer one. If you guys want, it's on the technocracy line, and I'll get into it. I got to take a sip of my coffee here. Oh man, it really does a number on your vocals when you talk a lot. Like I have to apologize to you folks because I probably sound stupid. It's really difficult. Let me clear my throat. Okay, that's a lot better. That's a lot better. Thanks for keeping us entertained and informed. I don't know about entertained. I'm not sure about entertained, but informed. Okay, so because thanks Sophie. Because you guys are super freaking generous. Yeah, I started pulling the thread on technocracy, D. Sparrow sounds much less stupid than some of the stuff we've been reading. Thanks, oh my god. Because of your incredible generosity, let's get into the technocracy thing. It is a bit of a long one, all right, but you know how I operate here. I try to read everything as deeply as I can. We did skip over a few things here, and on purpose because it just kind of there are some things that are not worth going into deeply, at least in my opinion. However, this one is a good one to go over. So let me pull up the link and let's begin. Now, oops, hang on. Technocracy. All right. Now, if you don't know what technocracy is, I'll give you a quick catch-up. Technocracy is a movement that started by someone called Howard Scott in the 1930s, who essentially thought that what you could do is you could take robots and generate enough robots such that they are going to do the bulk of the work in society. What would happen is that people who are mathematically and scientifically inclined or experts in those fields, specifically science and math, would replace politicians and bureaucracy, and they would be the ones that make the decisions at the very, very top echelons of government. And they would do so based on a energy input and output. You as a human have such energy, and robots have such energy. And because energy is a closed system where you could make quantifiable calculations in terms of what energy a human can produce and a robot can produce, then what you can do is you can offer things like $20,000 a year income for every family because you just extrapolate the long-term energy usage that the long-term energy production that a human could offer to society, and you just pay them upfront over their life. The other thing that they included was the concept of energy bucks. And so energy bucks, energy dollars, means that all the output that you as a human produce in terms of energy will be given to you in a way that's unique to you. Think of this as blockchain. This was kind of the ideal behind blockchain. These are things that only you can have. They only belong to you, but it's taken to an extreme level. Even blockchain did not go as deep as energy bucks. So you can't even pass this on to your children. The idea would be that this would eliminate things like crime, because who's going to steal energy bucks from you if there's some, this amorphous way of identifying that these energy bucks don't belong to you anyways? It's useless to you. So this was kind of the concept behind technocracy, and you'll note that one of the things that they cover here in this article It's the Technocrats magazine. Is where's this? This seems very similar to what we talk about when it comes to AI systems. Photocell gives a brain to machines, and we're still talking about this to this day. This is the technocratic movement playing before our very eyes with regards to AI, social media algorithms, software, etc. The reason why I cover this is because when I rant and rave about the tech industry, and the way that it's going and operating, and the my feelings first, and the push to have AI solve all our problems. It didn't happen in the 30s, and it's not going to happen now. Is because what you guys need to understand is that there is a history. There is a long history that started long before any of you or I were born, unless you happen to be like 80 or 90 years old, in which case salute and welcome in. But this kind of stuff was used for power plays. It's a way to control, society or societal factors. And I'm trying to be fair here. It's not like Howard Scott here, the creator of technocracy, had like some nefarious reason to be like, ha ha ha, petting their cat, in the back room of a dark lit place and going, ha ha, I will now control the world. He had a very kind of idealistic reason, right? Where he's like, look, we even went over it in this article, or sorry, in this magazine. People are suffering. They're being kicked out of their homes. They're living in squalor. The war caused a Great Depression. This kind of like never-ending inflation of the US dollar. How is Uncle Sam going to save us from this? We have the answer. The answer is energy and machines. We already use them. We could solve all these problems. So if you just take it from that perspective, just for a moment, you can at least understand where Howard Scott is coming from. So we followed this path through. We talked about this. Then we talked about Joshua Haldeman. And I went into a deep dive, including a biography of what Joshua Haldeman was into. And he is from Canada, particularly around, I believe it was Manitoba, I want to say. But he was in charge of the technocratic movement in Canada. And he had he tailored a lot of his views around the technocratic movement, which he gathered by being exposed to Howard Scott in the United States. And the same kind of ideas come out of Joshua Haldeman in the Canadian, world. He was even at one point arrested for being a part of technocracy, partially because of some stupid thing where the Canadian government, in all their idiotic wisdom, decided that it was not good to make anti-fascist statements, I believe. I don't know. It was something like that. We went over it on that stream. However, Joshua Haldeman, as it turns out, fully believing in the technocratic movement, being a leader of it and having gone to jail over it, happens to be the grandfather of Elon Musk. And we went over how the technocratic movement, for example, wants to have a technate. And the technate map includes Canada, North America, essentially, and Greenland, which lines up with why it was so out of the blue when Elon Musk was all buddy-buddies with Trump in the White House, and Trump suddenly starts saying things like, we gotta take over Greenland ASAP, and it was becoming a very big thing. And ever since Elon has fallen out of favor in the White House, when was the last time you heard Trump talking about taking over Greenland? So we're pulling on this thread, and so now we're going to continue with this thread. And the thread continues with a movement that came up around the 1960s and 70s, as kind of like we're following a timeline here. The technocratic movement, this stuff, did not appear in a vacuum. It popped up in a variety of other places, and it continues to pop up in a variety of other places. Yeah, Gulf of America. That's right, oh my God. Yep. And it appeared in different ways, but using the same principles and belief systems. Sometimes you can make a direct relation, a direct link to the technocratic movement if you map people's histories out. So I have to do a lot of deep diving into people's like history, biography, where they worked, see if there's a relation to like other technocratic leaders, etc., etc. But sometimes these things pop up on their own. And it infects kind of an ecosystem of the technological space. This is why I talk about it, because you can see that once the idea is implanted in the technological ecosystem, people are then kind of like secondarily and tertiary affected by it. And so the idea pops up. And so we're going to talk about Chile. Chile is a completely different movement. And they call this the cybernetic or cyber sin revolution. So the reason why I'm bringing this one up is because we're going to see the technocratic fundamental principles play out in Chile in real life. This picture you see before you is a real picture of a control room that Chile had as part of the technocratic implementation in the 1970s. They just didn't call it technocracy. They called it cybernetic or cyber sin, cyber SYN, because they didn't know that there was a correlate technocratic movement happening. But by the 60s and 70s also, the technocratic movement was kind of shuttered away. Howard Scott kind of wasn't being very active about it. Joshua Haldeman was kind of parading around, South Africa, I believe, and flying planes and stuff and having babies, and which ended up with Elon and so on and so forth, right? So the entire concept of the technocratic movement kind of went dark a bit during this time. But this is an instance where different people came up with the technocratic movement, named it differently, and then implemented it in Chile. And so let's dig in a little bit into this. This is an extremely in-depth article. It's 324 pages. What I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down real fast and I'm going to show you how in-depth this is. There's almost 150 pages dedicated to references and a glossary. It's super in depth. Now, are we going to read all of this? No, that would take forever. So I'll give you the notes that are important, that I think are important, but I will add a little bit of, I will flesh it out a bit because I do think that this is an important a story to consider when we talk about technocracy and how it plays out in real life. So to begin with, we have this person, Stafford Beer. Stafford Beer was related. So basically he called himself a cybernetician. He was an engineer, a scientist of sorts. He was associated with Great Britain and Ireland as part of his work. He constantly had connections to Britain and Canada, by the way. He was he would do talks on the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation in Canada during his lifetime. He wrote a bunch of books, etc. He received, in July 1971, he received an unexpected letter from Chile. Its contents would dramatically change Beer's life. The writer was a young Chilean engineer named Fernando Flores, who was working for the government of newly elected socialist president Salvador Allende. Flores wrote that he was familiar with Beer's work in management cybernetics and was now in a position from which it is possible to implement on a national scale, at which cybernetic thinking becomes a necessity. Scientific views on management and organization. Flores asked Beer for advice on how to apply cybernetics to the management of the nationalized sector of the Chilean economy, which was expanding quickly because of Allende's aggressive nationalization policy. Less than a year earlier, Allende and his leftist coalition Popular Unity Party had secured the presidency and put Chile on a road toward socialist change. So the article, well, the book here, essentially, it's a book, continues with an increase in industrial output. There was a socialist revolution that happened, and they saw a positive increase in the amount of industry that happened as a result of this change. So, hey, Chile is on a good path. We have a lot of industrial capability on output. How are we going to ensure that we maintain a good, control and management over our industrial output? Because we want to capitalize on this, right? So as the party took hold, Beer and this Flores guy who belonged to the party in question right now continue going back and forth, and they're like, "Hey, man, wouldn't it be great if we use cybernetics?" And here's Stafford Beer. Okay, this was when he was employed at Sigma. Okay, and man, wouldn't it be great? We have a great test bed of a socialist country that we can apply this cybernetics movement. And when I say cybernetics here, I want you to think technocracy. And Beer goes, "You know what? You've sold me." So as they continue going back and forth, Flores gets more and more, influence in the party of Chile at the time. And let me just go down here. Okay, okay. So at some point, Flores gets kind of like a promotion in the party, in the Chilean party. And so what he does, right, because of his competency here, it describes kind of his background and his competency. He gets a promotion, and then he goes, "Well, why don't we hire Beer?" And he persuades the Socialist Party at the time to fly Beer over from where he was at the time and consult on the Socialist Party and how they're going to implement cybernetics into this socialist government so that they can have a good form of control over their industrial output. Now, going down, skipping a few things. There's a whole model. They go back and forth. They talk about how this is going to work. Beer kind of takes he believes in socialism himself. He has to make a distinction that hey, I'm not a Marxist, but Marx had a few things that were correct. Why don't we implement kind of a few of the things that Marx had right, and tie that into my cybernetics, integration into your government, etc., etc. And so then during the first year of this party, Beer does a very kind of in-depth analysis of how they would integrate cybernetics or machines as a way to manage the government as a whole, the entire nation, particularly inputs and outputs, energy usage, industrial usage, optimizing it, min-maxing it, the whole 9 yards, communication, all of it. Now, I got to go down a bit. Let me find it. I know there's a picture. Okay. So they start with Project Cybersyn. So here we go. So Project Cybersyn is a synthesis of cybernetics and synergy. And essentially what this project becomes is the idea of cybernetics, the idea of machines in charge of decisions, more or less, with the synergism, if you will. I wonder if we've heard that term before in, VC funding, tech bro stuff, this synergistic, whatever synergism, technology, whatever, synergizing with our users, yada, yada. So this has existed since the 60s here in an entirely different country. And the idea here is that you take humans at the top who synergize with the machinery, and they take the raw information, and there's some people at the top who are heavily qualified because of their academics in terms of math and science to turn the machine inputs and outputs and either help the machine make decisions or make decisions themselves out of information out of the machine. They then create this thing called telex, which is essentially the internet but for Chile. They literally created an internet system that could send communications through pretty much the entirety of Chile instantly, almost instantly. It was it was crazy how fast this thing worked. It was like a prerequisite to kind of technology to having the entire system work. It was a prerequisite to the internet as a whole. They essentially built it right there. So let's continue down. They build all these systems, and then blah, 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 blah. Where does it go? Yada, yada. These are pictures of... Okay. And so here's a drawing of the actual control room that they ended up with. This is the CyberSyn control room. This was a real thing. This is a real control room that they actually built. It looks like something out of when you see those movies where there's a bunch of bad guys at the top who are all equally in charge, and you go to the top of the building and they're all making bad decisions together. This is the kind of room. And the chairs have buttons and information display outputs. And then there's a central console. And from here, the people who have been chosen because of their academic prowess to make decisions based on the information that was coming out of these machines sat in this room, and they would spread communications using the telex system and the CyberSyn input-output of the machines. They would do things like determine when coal would have to be transported from, say, one place or another. So they tried this out. Look at this. They even have a layout. They have a schematic. There's a blueprint on this entire process. This is exactly how they laid it out. You can see that there was an actual picture at the beginning. Here's another layout. They figured it all out. And here we go. Here's a picture. This was real. This looks like something out of for 1971. This is crazy that this is a real picture. But yes, this is a real room. They sat in here. They made their decisions based on the inputs and outputs of the machines, just like this. Tack, thank you, man. Thank you, Tack. I appreciate that. Thanks for the sub. Welcome in. That's great. Penis. Yeah, that's great. So here you go. Here's some of the inputs and outputs that they saw on these machines. You can see production, global, the assistance thing. You can kind of see some of the stuff here. These are the algedonic screens from the CyberSyn operations room, right? And so they have this it's crazy. They have an output where so essentially what happens here is that the people, when there's a multi-level decision that they have to make, it goes down this chain of events where this is the cybernetic thing where you have to have, everybody has to kind of go through a chain of steps in order to get to a conclusion, which then allows for a decision to go out and communicated as an action to the, whoever is affected by the action. This is crazy. So this is why I wanted to bring this up, because this was actually applied. This is technocracy in action. You're seeing it right before you playing out. Look at this chair. This would be what a technocratic government would look like. You would have someone who is, a master mathematician or something like that. And they would sit on a chair like this, and they would push buttons, and they'd talk to each other, and they'd make governmental federal decisions. Okay, and they would do so apparently at the speed of light, because technology produces communication, at the speed of light. That's kind of the goal here, right? Here's a preview, an artist conception of the buttons here. Okay, and what it was supposed to hold. And here it is. That's an armrest. All these buttons did something. This, I'm not joking. This is real. This is real stuff. This actually happened. So they would just communicate with each other. They all had different jobs, right? And they would have these metrics that they would have to go through, which was also highlighted on the board, and it would light up. So you can imagine, for example, that you would have one person in that room of chairs who was dedicated to like the potentiality of like doing some quick math and figuring out the potentiality of a decision. Somebody else would have to do quick math and the productivity or whatever. And when decisions had to be made, they would have to essentially like coordinate. And then there was like a light up system where when somebody thought, nah, the productivity is not worth it, and then somebody would go, but the potentiality is, and you'd essentially come to like a systemic if else switch case statement until enough of the positives outweighed the negatives in a systemic like numerical pattern, something like this, and then you'd come out to a decision, and then the system would just relay that decision out to the entire Chilean government. So as we continue, what happened is that in 1972, let me just go down. I got to go find it. Bear with me, folks. This was a very long, hang on. Contradictions. A technology of contradictions. So I'll make the long story short to kind of get us to the end. So 1971, they build the system. 1971, they use the system. In 1971, this system does fantastic. The socialist movement is in full force. The amount of production output that the Chilean government enjoys is huge. They're about ready to like break out throughout the whole world. They're about ready to make a ton of money. The CyberSyn system is proving to be highly effective. The communication factor it's really, really good. This is the Telex network. Their ability to make decisions seems to be playing out really, really well. However, what happens is that they miss a few really critical things. And I'm going to point some of them out. And again, for those who have ears, listen. So what is this section of the book talking about? Well, let's read just a little bit. I'm going to read from it because it's better to read from it instead of me summarizing. What they wanted to do was they wanted to make CyberSyn more political. The State Development Corporation increasingly separated the project from its cybernetic underpinnings. What was happening was that the political party in power at the time started seeing CyberSyn as a merely input-output tool and not as a tool for political decisions. And Beer went, this thing has political impact and you guys better use it for politics. It's more than just an input-output decision machine. And there started to be this kind of divergence between the political party going, what are you talking about? We have our own problems to deal with politically. You just go do the thing you're good at, which is dealing with production numbers and energy numbers and all of that. And so the people who were involved in CyberSyn were starting to feel kind of left out by the political party. And there was a bit of a push and pull, right? Work on Project CyberSyn accelerated after the strike. In 1973, there was a strike where the workers had enough. Why did the workers have enough? Because despite the fact that the Chilean government was saying, hey, isn't everything great? In fact, things were not great. And the workers were being mismanaged. Workers were being more overworked. Management of things like coal generation, for example, was being mismanaged heavily. So as an example, let me see if I can find this example. Coal. Here. The following anecdote explains why Chilean factory managers did not view the system as useful. An interventor from a cement factory discovered a serious coal shortage in his factory. He decided to visit the supplying coal mine to learn the cause of the problem. He traveled to the mine, personally spoke to the miners, and explained the importance of maintaining the coal supply. He then created a log to show when trains were available that could bring coal to the factory from the mine. Several days after the interventor returned to his cement factory, he received a notice from Project Cybersyn telling him of a potential shortage of coal. Do you guys understand? Do you guys understand what happened here? What technology could not account for is the fact that human-to-human interaction can far outpace and solve problems before a technology could even discover the problem to begin with. And one of the reasons why is because they built, if we look at, I wonder if telex room. Okay, I can't remember exactly where it is in this book, but they built essentially a cloud room, kind of like Amazon. They built like an Amazon bucket room, except they actually kept it secure. What they had to do was they had to build a cloud room of servers, and the telex network would receive information and send information, and they'd put it up on a centralized cloud system. I can't find it right now. I'm sure I've seen it somewhere in here. And the cloud system would have to process the data, and then it would send that data out to the command and control room at the top here. And it was that data that would provide these people the ability to make decisions. Now, granted, to be objectively fair, this is a part of the reason why the technology lagged behind human interaction is we are talking about the 60s. So you got to be fair, right? In the 60s, the kind of data processing that was available would not be the same as we have today. So we can't look at it from a modern lens, right? We have to look at it from the lens of at the time. Thank you, Gare Games. Thank you for the sub. I appreciate it, man. Thank you, man. Okay. So they had it like a cloud-based infrastructure. They had the internet. They had technocracy implemented in a room that was exactly this. This is the real room. And then let's go back to the contradictions. However, the workers were not happy because the workers were noticing that as the system lagged behind and as they had to wait for these people to come up with like their methodology and their mathematical energy inputs and outputs, they could just go talk to a human being. They could just go talk to a human being and they could solve these problems. That one anecdote, by the way, was not a singular anecdote. There were many other anecdotes. There were many other reasons as well, because these systems did not account for things like overworked. I believe it was overworked workers. I could be wrong on that. Don't quote me on that. But in any case, there were problems with it, right? So now you have a system where a strike happens and the workers are unhappy and the Chilean government goes, what the hell? You guys were supposed to be able to be in control of this. How about you just stick to your lane? Just stick to your lane. We're having a strike here, and it's causing the Chilean government an inability to break out into the world as a powerhouse producer of like raw earth minerals like coal and stuff like this. We're right there. We're on the precipice of it. Our socialist government could prove that we could make billions of dollars by selling, all this production stuff that we have. Yeah, you guys did great with your Cybersyn network. Just stick to your lane though, because you're making people pissed off and they're striking against us. Okay. It's weakening our power. And in 1973, we have to go through another election, and we need to keep the people happy. Okay, so you guys just stick to your lane and we'll deal with the politics. And the Cybersyn people go, no. Cybersyn is intended to take over politicians and bureaucracy. That's the technocratic movement. You don't have people who are politicians. You don't have political policy. You have nothing but the Cybersyn setup where you have people who are in charge of raw computing inputs and outputs as fast, or in this case, as slow, as a computing system can judge. The end of 1972 starts taking hold, and the party starts noticing more and more pushback. And now are being uh, news articles are being created in Chile, and they're starting to talk about how the cybernetic movement is Marxist in nature. They bring up Marxism because they point to Beer, and they kind of straw man him, and they go, look, Beer, the guy who created this, he's a Marxist. He wasn't really like a full on Marxist. He just had particular things he agreed with Karl Marx on. And because socialism and communism and Marxism kind of have overlaps, the the propaganda machine started to play against the government and go, haha, you guys don't like Marxism, even though you're socialist. And look, the person who created the system that you guys hate so much, well, he's a Marxist, right? And so we see the propaganda start in like late 1972. And then in 1973, things take a dramatic turn. In 1973, the Chilean government starts seeing a massive decline in their overall production output. They were starting to become a country in 1972 that had a surplus of almost, I can't remember the exact, it was like over $100 million in surplus, which in $1960 is a huge amount. They were going to be a dominant powerhouse. It was almost there. Then in 1973, they had a trade deficit of $438 million, declining production, and a 180.3% increase in prices in the previous 12 months. The class war intensified because what started to happen is the shift started to go away from the cybernetic movement, and the people started seeing the government that included the cybernetic movement, but not exclusively to them, as a bourgeois power play. And so they started striking even harder. So now you start factoring in all of these things. The cybernetic movement cannot, do the things that it needs to be doing. People are falling behind. The production value is falling behind. The cybernetic system, the CyberSyn system, that control room isn't operating the way it should. They're not capable of making decisions as quickly as they could and or should be. You factor in all of these things, and then you have strikes, and then what you have is the inability for these systems to even continue to operate at full capacity because of the strikes. So what happens for a temporary moment in time, and again, for those who have ears, listen. For a temporary moment in time, I wonder if I can find it here. I can't remember which page it's on. I should really take notes and put it on my... Crap. Okay, so around 1973, early 1973, I'm going to have to go off memory because I read it like yesterday. What happened, the political party at the time and CyberSyn put their differences aside for a moment, because as the strikes and the unrest grew, what they realized is that they could use the telex internet system to quell the protests. And indeed, it worked. Because what they did was they used this system to gather as much information as they could about their citizens by looking at work productivity outputs per employee. They drilled down to individual employees. They looked at higher levels of communications in certain parts of the country versus lower, which gave them an indication of where protests and unrest were more likely to happen, because a lower level of communication would mean that these workers were working less, and so then they would be more inclined to protest and cause issues, things like this. They would communicate. They would send out like people who would do things like, heavily police and monitor neighborhoods, and then they would use the telex, internet system to very quickly send information about potential upcoming unrest by having these, policed areas send information like that. So they used the system and kind of warped it into a tracking mechanism. And in so doing, they were able to hold at bay the political unrest that happened. Unfortunately, they couldn't hold it forever. It only happened, they could only contain it for a little while. And between 1973 and 1974, the political party lost so much steam that they had to essentially get disbanded by force. They were overthrown, and there was, I believe, a military coup. Yes. They were attacked. The presidential palace was attacked with tanks. And during this period of time, the political party made a hard exit away from Cybersyn and said, you know what? I don't care about your technological quantifications and calculations. What are you going to do when I'm being attacked by weapons? Yeah. That's what the leader of the party said to Beer publicly. How are you going to help me when I'm being attacked by weapons? This fancy little, internet connected thing and your fancy cloud-based system and your command and control center and all this fancy telecommunication stuff. How is this going to help me when I have people with tanks rolling up? And they suffered several months of hard ostracism and divergency from the political socialist government at the time until eventually it happened. They got taken over because the amount of unrest just built up, and these people took it upon themselves. This story serves as a warning. Do you understand the warnings? And do you understand the positives? Because there are positives in this story. Do you understand what those are? And so again, I say, for those who have ears, listen. This is an example of how this kind of movement, which has almost the same principles as the technocratic movement, can operate, can appear on its own, if that makes sense, in an independent fashion in a completely different country. And here's how it played out in real life when implemented. Are there good aspects? Sure. Are there bad aspects? Sure. Pay attention. And we're going to continue down this thread as I continue the Daily Tech News streams. There is a timeline of these things where they pop up seemingly independently, but they essentially just kind of all come from the same thing. And it is about this time in the 1960s where you start to see people who become more and more, let's say, impacted by this technocratic ideology. It's not called technocracy in every case, but it has the same principles. And what you're going to start to see, I'm going to cover it in an upcoming stream, is that there becomes a series of scientific kind of like pushes. Inside of the scientific ecosystem comes scientific papers and studies and things like this, which promote the idea of technocracy, which promote the idea of the merging of biology with machines, the merging of brains with machines, or in some cases, the entire replacement of brains, human brains with machines. We'll cover a little bit of that too. Through this principled ideology, the principle of this ideology, I mean. So we're going to follow that thread through and we're going to see how this stuff pops up because this is the history of the programming field. And this ideological battleground continues to play out right now today. It just shows up in different forms. And you have to be aware of what you're getting yourself into and why it's really, really important that you understand about the things that really matter in this industry. This kind of ideology and this kind of raw adherence, strict adherence to these kinds of things, you really need to give a second thought as to the impact that this has on the world and whether people are kind of hand-holding the tech industry to lead it to a particular thing. And When I talk about things like AI making scientific discoveries, the addictive properties of AI, etc., you have to take this into consideration. They forgot their purely logical and rational systems are dealing with humans that are not always logical and rational. That's definitely a part of it. Yeah. How to keep the good while separating out what is damaging when money rules. Scary on this level. Yeah. Imagine that the entire government is run this way. That's the fundamental obstacle. Humans are not compatible. They need meat robots. Yeah. Yeah. It's going to lead into, it's going to lead into some stuff. Whoever anonymously gifted, thank you for the anonymous gift. I appreciate that. Yeah. And then, so with that kind of, no, not this one. Let me just have a look at one more. Here, let me switch over. Where the heck did it go? I thought I had one more. Not the emotion one. Okay, here we go. So with that in mind, here we go. This will be the last article I cover. I want you to keep the entire technocratic movement in mind and the way that the people in the tech industry, especially the people in charge, think about this technological power that they think they have. And we're going to briefly go over the scientific study. This will be the last thing. The darker side of positive AI attitudes, investigating associations with problematic social media use. The highlights. Associations between AI attitudes and social media use are studied. Positive AI attitudes link to more problematic social media use. The present study shows that positive AI attitudes might come with costs for users. This is from June 2nd, 2025. They take a sample of 956 social media users. They observed that positive AI attitudes were linked to overuse of social media as assessed with an addiction framework. The effect size of this association was stronger for males than females. Further, we observed that this association was mediated by time spent on social media. The present study shows that positive AI attitudes, although well known to be positive regarding embracing new technologies, might come with risk for developing addictive patterns of technology use, such as social media. So essentially, if you have a positive attitude towards AI, there is a non-zero chance, albeit perhaps small, that you have a social media addiction. And one of the things that they go into here is, the factor, like the risk factor isn't exactly like, oh my God, everyone's going to fall prey to AI addiction and social media addiction. But there is a non-zero amount of people who do fall into it. One of the things that they go over is that these people don't typically have a history of having some kind of like mental issue, or other health issues. It just kind of happens. There's something inherent to the system that captures their brain. And so then they start falling into what's called positive attitudes towards these systems. This has been well known with video games, gambling, gaming, shopping, social media, etc. But they bring out a particular issue with AI that makes it worse. Let me see if I can find it. No, it's not it. Okay, well, I can't seem to find it right now, but I know it's in here. They talk about this. So, okay, so one of the things they say is that, and they have a reference to it somewhere in here, damn it, if I could just find it. They have a reference to, like, what's happening with games? We're putting more AI in them. You know what's happening with social media? We're putting more AI in them. And what's worse, we're doing it in such a way that people use social media and they don't even know that AI is being injected into these social media platforms. They might even engage with an AI chatbot, or they might see AI generated content, text, visual, or otherwise, and not realize it's AI. And because of the sycophantic nature of AI, because it has some weird tendency to further capture people's minds, because it has this feedback reward system that some people really, really like, what it does is in and of itself, in a vacuum, AI may not necessarily cause addiction, but it can enhance existing addictive tendencies of existing systems like social media. And as a result, what you see is a corollary between AI positive feelings with social media addiction, because of course you would. As AI becomes more integrated into social media, the amount of people who become addicted to it increase, or their amount of addiction increase, or perhaps both. And so then they also feel good about AI because they're ingesting it anyways and they like it. So you can see how all of this is multi-layered and plays in on itself. Do you honestly want to tell me that it's only the viewers on this stream right now who understand how this operates? Is that what you believe? Do you actually believe that we're the only people on the planet who know how this works? And are you naive enough to think that there aren't people out there who want to use this to their advantage and do so? In any case, these are the systems by which technocracy would want to operate everything in your life. So I want you to tie that all in, and I want you to really be careful out there. Really be careful out there, and really understand what kind of a field you're playing in. It is not simply just code up websites with cat pictures and have fun and make a bit of money along the way. Unfortunately, that is not the state of the field such as it is right now. It's not that simple. And we see that in cybersecurity issues. We see that with AI. We see that with addictions in these systems. We see that with an over-reliance on these things. We see that with stupid decisions being made inside of tech. We see that with, even before all this, there was ideological battles taking place within tech with different ideologies between, like, you could say left and right, if you want to say that, all other kinds of ways. All of this stuff plays out right here in this ecosystem. Programming, machines, inputs and outputs, the stuff that we build, and the stuff that a vast majority of the world depends on a day-to-day basis. What kind of a world do you want to build for yourself, your family, and the people around you? So it's really important that you keep this in mind. No, but we're some of the only ones making connections between all the things. Maybe we might be some of the, I don't know if that's true, but okay, that's it. That's my stream. That is my stream. Let me make sure that I've got. Oh, is there anything? No, that's it. Yeah, that's all I've got. That's my stream for the day. I really want the world of Lamborghudis 3000 that only 3 Saturday guys can buy. Yeah, what's up, Tack? Good to see you, man. Hope you're doing well, Tack. Pretty sure I ended up in a chat with a bot once. It kept claiming I was the bot. That's going to happen more. Can you point to anyone else doing this? I can't, I don't know. I don't know of anyone else who covers I don't know of anybody else who takes all of these topics that seem kind of not related and talks about like how they impact the world of programming. And it's not to say that there's a secret cabal that, sits behind you all the time and tells you to program in a particular way because they want to take over the world. Just shut up, laugh. It's just, what I'm saying is that you have to be aware. You as a consumer have to be aware, and you as a programmer have to be aware, and you as a manager have to be aware, and you as an executive have to be aware, and all of that. Being aware of all of this stuff is important because it informs your decisions. And you can think of it too as like, if you're a consumer who doesn't know anything about programming, you can kind of understand why you're paying more for less quality stuff, because we're spending so much time on these idiotic ideas, and we have the ability to actually go and build really cool stuff that would be worth your dollars, but we're wasting it all. We're things like this, right? So that's why I talk about all of this stuff. It's not exactly like a Goomba hat conspiracy theory secret cabal. I want you guys to be aware that this kind of stuff has been playing out for a long time, and it impacts you and so on, right? Be aware of it. Thanks, D. Thanks, D. No, thank you, Sophie. Thank you for the contribution you made earlier, Sophie. Thank you for being here all the time. I do appreciate it. There are a million AI hypists. Yeah. Once again, you beat Spirit Laugh. Shut up. Thanks for the well, oh my God, I'm glad you enjoyed it, because like I hope it was worth the insane contribution you made, man. I hope I made it worth it. The Empire of it. Yeah, I've read that one, Ghost. Yeah. The problem with that book is that there's a little bit too much anecdotal information, so it's hard for me to point to it as objective evidence, but it is a good book, Ghost. Yeah. I'd rather learn about stuff, but instead of being ignorant. Yeah. Vanessa Wingard on YouTube. I'll have to look at that and see. I got to try and stick to the stuff that's like more objective, right? If I can. If I can. It's hard to do, but you wish you could have given more. What the hell are you talking about? Oh my God. No, man. Never, never, ever put yourself out. Um, Never. I would rather you guys look. If my this is the consequence of my prescription. My prescription is we encourage developers to learn fundamentals better. We focus on fundamental aspects of building quality, efficient, secure software, video games, etc. As a result, consumers are much happier. They spend more money on the products. These products last longer. We get more use out of them. We're more productive with them. We solve a bunch of problems with them. We redirect a bunch of wasted energy and money into things that we can absolutely solve with current tools pre-AI. The outcome of that would be that we all have jobs, we all have money. Everything is just generally not perfect, but it's a lot better than it is today. So the most important thing that you can do is not necessarily the financials. And this is not to kind of like put down, oh my God, what you've done. What I want to make clear is that you should never, ever, ever put yourself in a bad position to send me money, although I greatly appreciate it because it helps pay bills. It genuinely does. The real thing that I want you people to do is use your brain, think for yourselves, hit the like and subscribe. Do the like, do the repost, reshare, sub. The subs on Twitch are also help. I should put in another like 20, $30 actually, because it's about like $10 a pop on that. Let me do that right now because you guys on the Twitch side are also, helping out with the goal. So it's now I'm going to be over goal. Um, I'll have to update the goal again. So we'll put 830. But like following all that stuff. That's the stuff that helps, because if I can present this information to more people, hopefully more people are persuaded. Hopefully it means that they go and talk about this stuff to other people around them. Hopefully that means that spreads, and then we can kind of like make a change, some kind of change in the tech industry, and we can steer the ship in the right direction. It's not all doom and gloom, but you guys got to help me get there. Thank you, oh my God. I appreciate that. Thank you for recommending. Link to Twitch? Sure. I'll send you a link to Twitch. You got it. You got it. I'll pop it in to this chat. The Meta was also grilled in Senate for stealing stuff. Yeah, and they also refused to sign the EU AI safety agreement, or I don't know, something like that. But it didn't cover that because it's not a binding thing. It's not a requirement. They just refused to do it. Meta's playing games. Yeah. I'm going to wait for some more like a little bit more concrete articles to come out in terms of the Meta stuff. So, yeah. Okay. Any last questions or words? GPT pull up software quality from 1980 to 2025, overlay with developer to CEO pay gap, analyze. Yeah, yeah. I'll have to check out this link after, Ghost. Um, I see. Okay, 7 days ago. Okay, nice. Thanks for the follow, Sophie, on the Twitch side. I appreciate that. That helps. It does help. It's free and it helps. Thank you, Sophie. That's the kind of stuff that helps out the most. You guys have been amazing for that. So I appreciate it. But again, I don't want to like make the financial stuff meaningless. It's not. It's math. You guys don't understand how much the financial helps. It's more than words can express. So thank you. But the free stuff, that's the most important thing. We gotta get this stuff out there. In my opinion, this information has to go out there. So, okay, I guess that's it. I'm gonna call it. That's it, guys. I'm gonna do my typical outro. I'm going to. Okay, so am I gonna be on tomorrow? Let me think about if I'm gonna be on tomorrow. Let me go look at my. Let me just do a quick look on my calendar. I am probably going to be on tomorrow. Yes. Yeah, I'm probably going to be on tomorrow. Let me just check one more thing. So probably on tomorrow. You know what I'm going to do tomorrow? I think tomorrow I'm going to do a video game stream. I'm just looking to make sure. Yeah, blah 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 blah. Yeah, I think I'm going to I'm gonna do a video game stream tomorrow. So we'll do a chill one. We'll do call-ins tomorrow. You guys can call in and debate me. Programming game, if you want to come back, I don't know if you're still there. You can come back tomorrow and tell me how much of an idiot I am, and I will happily get into it with you. We'll take our time and we'll kind of hash out details. Whatever you want to do. So it'll be a chill stream. So catch me again tomorrow. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be on. However, absolutely the worst case scenario, if I don't get to go on tomorrow, I will see you on Monday for another Daily Tech News stream. I have lots to go over. Open bar, that's right. I can shoot you a DM on Discord too. Yeah, shoot me a DM on Discord, oh my god. Yeah, shoot me a DM. You're on Discord already, so I can ping you, you ping me, whatever works, man. Whatever you want to run by me, all good. And that's it. I'm out of here. Listen, guys, I can't tell you how much I appreciate the support. You guys are awesome. Please stay safe out there. All right. And if I don't see you over the weekend, have a fantastic freaking weekend. Okay. Join my Discord. Could I get a mod to do the Discord thing while I do the outro here? Join my Discord. You can come chat with me. I'll probably be on voice chat after this for a while. Come hop on. Talk to me. Peace out, everybody. You guys are cool. Oh, right, guys. Guys, I'm sorry. One last thing. The Chilean government time traveled to the future and used Cybersyn to calculate the people in my chat who suck quantitatively. And so, using a quantum computing machine, I now have the results of everybody in chat who sucks. So here we go. I'm going to list this out. Sophie, you suck. Laughably, you suck. Tack, you suck. D-Daver, you suck. Omagod, you suck. That's right, not even the financial contributors escaped today. All of you suck. Ghost, you suck, okay? Sophie, twice, because you're on the Twitch side and the YouTube side. You suck twice. D, you suck. Let's see, Gear Games, you suck. Who else? Programming Game, you suck. Gotta scroll up here. Gotta scroll up. This Cybersyn system, it's 1960s tech, okay? It's 1960s tech, and the quantum computing thing is doing like this weird... Pig, you suck, all right? I think I got D-Daver, that's fine. Let's go. Restream Bot, you suck. Empty Code, you suck. Vamp, you suck. Alpha Beta, you suck. Streamlabs, you suck. Ross, you suck. TMX, you suck. Peercoin, you suck. I gotta keep going. Gotta keep going. Gotta go fast. Sonic, gotta go fast. Gotta go fast. Okay, I think that's it. Everyone sucks. All of you suck. I will catch you hopefully tomorrow for a chill video game stream. Peace out, everybody. Have a fantastic weekend, all right?